Hello, everyone. I see this is a slightly different format. Looks like all the work I did to put up the logo and everything didn't actually work here. Too bad. Okay, let me say hello to everyone here. Robbie Robin, Robert Chinnery. Wow, it's really not very clear, is it? Green Eyes, good morning from Australia. Moonsaw, hello. Celeste Herget, Soul Survivor, come to me. So this is a different format. This is, we're using StreamYard. I must say I'm not very impressed with the quality at this point. Maybe I can just get the lighting a little bit better. I don't think that's better or worse. But yeah, I must say I'm already sort of aware of the glitches here. I put in a background. I don't see the background there, and yeah. Finola, good to see you. Pam James, I'm from Indiana. It looks like a filter, yeah. Okay, so we're going to have a special guest on the show. If I can get it right, I have sent you the link, but this is the very first time that I'm doing StreamYard, so please bear with me. I'm going to try and bring her on now. If Timmy can stop licking my hand, let's see if I can bring her on. Layout. I was hoping that was going to work. I'm not sure what I'm doing wrong. Timmy, can you move aside? Daphne says, I'll be driving soon, but listening in the car. Have a great discussion, and ear scratches for Timmy. Thanks. I'm going to try and bring Stephanie in. I thought I just did, but apparently not. I've changed the layout. That didn't do anything. Let's go to private messages, see what she says. I see her there, but she's not on. It's bright, yeah, it is bright. Yeah, I really don't know what I'm doing wrong. I've added Stephanie, but I just don't see her here. Well, this is what I was afraid was going to happen. Let me try again. Guests. Oh, there we go. Let's see if this works. Add to stream. Can you guys see Stephanie? I can see you there, but I don't see on the screen. There we go. I think there's maybe a 10-second delay. Stephanie, hello.
Hi.
How are you doing?
Have a lot of respect for what you're doing. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I can hear you before I see you speaking. So it's kind of disorientating.
Yeah, this is really weird. I have my other monitor open so I could see the chat. Hi, everybody. Okay. But it's delayed, so I'm going to focus on you.
Are you using your phone?
No, I'm using a computer.
Okay, so, well, I'm not quite sure how that works, but I'm also just going to look at the live version of you and not the delayed version of you on my computer, on my YouTube. But then I can't actually see the comments. Does it say Stephanie? Yes, it does. Okay. Stephanie, you're from Connecticut, and you are a true crime, what's the word? Rocket scientist.
Well, that's a compliment. I guess I've learned from the best.
You definitely have. You are an amazing researcher, and you are definitely on the ball, as today's episode is going to show. Daddy's girl, thanks a lot. She says, hope some is found alive and well soon.
Yeah, I apologize for not modding and thanking everybody. I don't know if there's another mod in chat or not. Yeah, but thank you everybody for your support and your contributions.
I remember saying something to Bria, but I'm not sure if I got confirmation, but I guess, if there's not a mod, then you guys, there is Bria. No, I don't want to say aficionado, Bria. I know that word was on the tip of my tongue, but we don't have aficionados here. We have something different to that. True crime rocket scientists. So, Stephanie, do you want to tell us a bit about you, and also how did you get into true crime? A little bit about your story.
Well, I've been interested in true crime ever since I was young. I have a good friend, and her and I would always discuss this stuff and feel a little hesitant to share our hobby with other people because some people just don't get it. And we used to go to the bookstores, and I remember the Black Dahlia being one of the first ones that I read about. Okay. And then we had a terrible home invasion in Cheshire, which was the town I grew up in. And my husband actually was a classmate of one of the perpetrators, and it was a terrible, terrible. It hit literally close to home in my hometown. And then I got wrapped up in the Chris Watts case and was really struggling to make sense of that case and many YouTubers and
So the Chris Watts case, was that one of the first cases you paid attention to?
I guess on social media in this way, like YouTube forums, I didn't really, I knew about Amanda Knox and a lot of the high profile cases, Oscar Pistorius, but I had never been engaging in live streams and conversations with like-minded people where we would share ideas and discuss the cases. So the Chris Watts case was the first case that had gone in that direction for me.
Yeah, I must say true crime is evolving. When I first started, I was writing magazine articles about the Oscar Pistorius case, and they weren't even accepted. They were sort of, some of them, I won't say none of them were accepted, but a couple of them were accepted. But I mean, if you think about the interactivity we get now, which one day Donald Wells says something, and you have instant reactions from thousands of people, and it's all on the same platform, compared to someone writing a magazine article, comes out a month later, a couple of people buy the magazine, read it. In terms of the writer and the interactivity, it's very slow. And writing a book is also similar. Maybe you get a review and you get that sort of thing. And it just speeded up more and more and more. And YouTube has certainly opened that all up even more. You had Facebook that did it to some extent, and people would jump on the hashtags on Twitter while a trial was happening. But now it is truly seamless and fluid and rapid, and we've just had Don Wells publishing his latest thoughts on Facebook, and it's sort of immediate, the reaction, you know what I mean? And you have a action, reaction. Yeah. So what we're going to do in this episode, see, we've got over 2,000 people in at the moment. We're going
to... I just want to apologize. I'm not sure where to look because I have 3 screens.
Yeah, I know. I have that problem too.
Well, so if I look like I'm looking down, I promise I'm not.
Yeah. Yeah, I tend to just look at the screen in front of me, but the camera is
Okay.
actually somewhere else. But you can look at yourself, I guess. Look at, I'm not quite sure what you see there. I've got a small little thumbnails within what I'm looking at. Maybe if I do this.
No, you're fine. I'm looking at you and I can see you. If I turn this way, I'm seeing the chat. So forgive me, I'm not ignoring anybody.
Okay. Okay,
I'm
so this
ready
is
when you
baby steps.
are.
Probably the fifth or sixth time we do this, it'll be a lot better. I'm a little bit shocked that there's no, I thought I put in a background and a logo and I don't see either of that. I don't know why not. I mean, I'm not quite sure what that's all about.
Well, that's
But
not too bad for a first glitch. It could be
so,
worse.
yeah, no, for sure. So it's half past, it's 20 to 5 where you are, it's 20 to 11 at night where I am. So I'm going to get going, otherwise I'm going to fall asleep. So we're going to talk about the live that Chris McDonough from the interview room did last night. I think you watched it as it happened, right?
I did.
And you took notes.
Yeah. Yes, I
Okay,
did.
so we're gonna sort of go through some of the things that stood out to you, and then I'm gonna jump in every now and then. We've basically broken it down into 11 shockers, right? Half Rutter, thanks a lot. Half Rutter, it may seem primitive here in South Africa, but I was actually asking my father, who's a builder, do we build heating in new homes here? And he said, our winters are so short, and the cold days only, it's like very cold in the morning and cold late at night. But beyond that, it can warm up quite a lot. Even on a cold winter's day, it can warm up quite quickly. So um, basically, we put in big windows and we turn on our electric blankets, and that's sort of sufficient. So it's not that I'm in the dark ages. It's just that you know our climate here is maybe it's a little bit different. It certainly goes even in winter. It can go from very cold to quite warm in the same day. But tell me, okay, come. Okay, so full disclosure, I didn't watch the whole thing. It was 2 a.m. when I did watch. Well, I didn't actually watch. I didn't watch the whole thing, but I did watch snippets. It was 2 a.m. I think when it came on. But I think Stephanie's did watch the whole thing, and I've responded to some of her comments, and I've obviously since it came on, I still haven't watched the whole thing, but I did watch more of it than I originally saw. So I'm gonna sort of hand it over to Stephanie. We are working from a script, so if it seems what's the word, like scripted, it's because it is. Okay, so Stephanie, I'm gonna pull it up on my screen, the script, and you can let me just maybe introduce it. Stephanie provided this excellent summary and also asked what stood out to you, and that's a question I also want to ask you guys. And you can answer it now, what stood out to you in that chat, and then you can also answer it when we finish the 11 points, whether there's something else that we missed, right? So I'm going to be going through, or Stephanie's going to be going through her notes verbatim, and then I'll provide some of my feedback. And off you go, Stephanie.
I think I feel like how you did during your first live stream. Now you're quite polished. Okay. The first point that I have is in regards to the 2020 domestic assault incident with Don. Don said that Grandma, Candace, and Jose were at the house at the time of the domestic dispute. And Chris McDonough had shared that he thinks perhaps that Grandma Candy was the one who had got her knee injured in the assault, and that Candace was possibly covering for her. And in Candace's police report, she reported that her knee was hurt, and that could account for Grandma Candace's injury. Even if she had knee problems years prior, it certainly could have aggravated it. And we know that the narrative with Grandma getting the pain meds for her knee has been part of the background of the story of that day.
Absolutely, yeah. So that's the first point, that Candace covered for Candy, or Candace covered for her mother, for Grandma, right? Now, what I think is very interesting there is basically just in that little snippet, you have Candace covering for Grandma, right? Where when we say covering, I mean, we're talking about Candace saying that, or we're saying that Don hurt, did Candace say that Don hurt her or pushed her?
That's what Candace wrote in the police report, that she was injured. Yeah. And it's possible, knowing that Grandma, or I guess we don't know for sure if she did go to the hospital for medication for her knee, to get her knee looked at, that it was so, Grandma Candace. So but it just show that there's a cover up there for some reason, whether it's protecting oneself or protecting a perpetrator.
Yeah, so in the police report, it was obviously stated that the person who was pushed injured her knee. Is that right?
Yes, as Candace.
Yeah. So what is really useful in that is, as you say, this precedent for someone covering up for another. Because if you think about it, what is worse from everyone? Well, when I say everyone's perspective, I mean everyone in the family. In terms of law enforcement, what is worse, Don pushing Grandma and Grandma getting injured from the police looking from the outside looking in, or Don pushing Candace and then Candace saying, no, don't worry, I'm okay. Look, my knee's fine. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah.
So you might say, well, that's silly. I mean, it's not anything serious, but it is a cover-up. It is something that actually happened where law enforcement are involved. You then tell law enforcement a story that is not the actual story, which minimizes what happened, and it kind of does something where the police basically just go away. It minimizes something. And I think you've also got to ask the question, who wanted it minimized? Who stood to lose out if it wasn't minimized? Who could have gotten into serious trouble if it wasn't minimized? And I think another question to ask, especially in the context of what followed Chris McDonough's interview, is you've seen this vitriol on Don's Facebook in the last couple of hours, how angry he can get in the full view of the public. So, what do you think could happen if you have a situation where, he hurt somebody and then he could get into trouble? You've got to sort of ask yourself, did Candace sort of put up her hand and volunteer to kind of toe the line, or was she told to toe the line? Was she told what to say, right? Was she told, and all that? And if you follow that line of thought, you could also say, is the same thing happening now? Is Candace also being told what to say now? Were the boys also being told what to say now? Is Grandma also being told, be quiet and whatever, So out of that little snippet, out of that little sort of parable, is a lot of precedent for now. And and you might say, "Wow, I think you're really taking things out of context," but it's not it's not the first time that there've been incidents, and there's also the Rosemary Bly thing, and you've also got to wonder, how deep does this rabbit hole go? And I think we're starting to suspect it's deeper, darker, sicker, and more extreme than we first thought, right?
Right, right.
Because that was one of the early things that we sort of said is, we know there's an excess of stuff going on, but to what extent is it excessive, and to what extent are we going to really extreme things? And I think we're starting to see that we are going there, right?
Yeah, and I just, before I continue, I want to make sure that I'm clear that I took notes in my own words, and it's not verbatim what Chris McDonough said. If I misheard something, or this is just my
No, these are just
perception
your
of what
notes
I listened
verbatim to what, I mean, it's basically the notes
Yeah.
you took verbatim, not, Okay, so do you want to read out number 2, Stephanie?
Sure. Don admits to having a drug problem in the past that included cocaine.
Okay, so I've written it a little bit differently. So number 1 is Candace covered for Candy. That's the number 1 shocker. And you've also got to ask in terms of that, is Candy covering for Candace now, right? Anyway, number 2, Don admits to being a druggie, right? But indirectly, right? And in a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, right? So he's kind of saying, you know what? I did use drugs once upon a time, right? But in a weird way, he sort of catches himself out, right? So as Stephanie says, he admits to having a drug problem in the past, and now we've got a new substance added to all the sort of substances we are starting to notice. You see a twisted tea, so it's like, oh, maybe there's a little bit of alcohol. You see, those vape things. I'm not quite sure how that even works. Okay, so that might be part of it. So I think the interesting part with this is that Don used drugs a long time ago, presumably. So he's a reformed man now, a true blue, and a regular attendee at the Kingsport SDA Church. All fine and dandy, except that Don admits to fire, and that's one of the last points. Don also admits to firing a drug dealer who recently visited his property. So if he's recently fired a drug dealer, he also suggests that a dealer abducted Summer. And so what he also acknowledges through this contrivance is that drug dealers were doing business at the Welsh property, certainly possibly as far as they were concerned, right up to the moment Summer disappeared. And I think this is hardly surprising, but we've got confirmation of this now from Don himself, right? What do you think about that? And what do you think about that juxtaposing that whole thing of, a drug dealer came to our property right about at the time that Summer disappeared, so maybe a drug dealer abducted her, and then the whole thing with the church. Well, let's go to church, and I'm actually a good guy. If you're a reformed individual and everyone knows it, why are drug dealers visiting your home?
Right. That it was happening as recent as a day or a couple days prior to the disappearance of the child. It's a pattern of behavior that has been happening. It's, a legacy of substance abuse and cover-ups and probably lying.
Okay, so the third point, I don't actually want to say the word because I don't know whether YouTube will be very happy with it, but let me provide a different string of words for the word. let me put it this way. In South Africa, there's a Afrikaans word that means blood shame. It's kind of the Afrikaans word for when that happens, where people who are related to one another engage with one another intimately. But the Afrikaans word for that is, blood shame. Basically means that something has happened in the family and it's an absolute kind of a catastrophe, especially in terms of the victim. So I'm not going to use the word there, but I think you know what we're referring to.
Mm-hmm. I think we've been saying it as S-aid.
Yeah. But I'm kind of talking about the, well, there's another word that starts with an I that is another version of that.
Within the family. Family members.
Okay, so do you want to read the next note that you took?
Yeah. Don also admits to S-ing the family members that have spoken up on YouTube and Facebook about it. He says it happened when he was younger.
So once again, it's there are two ways you can deal with reality, especially inconvenient truths. The one is you can deny it, but of course, if someone knows something, you're not going to look very good when someone says, well, here's the proof that what you're saying is not true. So the other option is you can just minimize it. So you say, yes, I did do that, it is true, but it's kind of not so bad kind of thing. It happened a long time ago. It's part of my distant backstory in that same galaxy a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. So it's kind of the same thing here, where he says he did do that, but it happened when he was younger. And I think that does raise the question, what if that's not the case? What if it also occurred when he was older? And if the answer is it did, then what? Then with whom? And how does that possibly have a bearing on this case? Is that why things are happening the way they are happening? Sorry, I think Stephanie's got children that she's got to, like I've got a puppy.
I had a cat scratching at the door.
Oh, really? Okay.
And I didn't want you to have to hear.
So I don't know if you can hear, my dog is actually, he's like scratching on his bed here because he's like, oh, so you're not going to hold me? Well, I'll irritate you somewhere else. I don't know if you can hear that he's decided to get my attention some other way. Okay, so I don't know if you guys know this. Candace's brother Warren, let me just be quite clear about this. Candace has a brother called Warren, who's almost the same age as Don, right? And he was convicted of that. I'm trying not to say the word, where biologically related relatives are intimate with one another. I don't think you can say inappropriately because it's far more than being inappropriate. And one of the reasons why we try not to say these words is because I think when you speak about certain things, YouTube disables the comments, but it's probably going to happen anyway. But anyway, we're just trying to be careful.
And it makes you wonder which family members was.
Yeah. So you actually have a situation here where Don did the same thing to his family members, and now Candace's brother did the same thing to family members as well. And it's, I think, possibly worse. It's difficult to argue which one is worse because they're both, unacceptable. But as far as I know from the news report that I saw, Warren did it on at least 8 separate occasions, and it was with a child.
And he pled no contest, so he didn't even say he was innocent. He just And the weird thing is that I mean, that's something perhaps to study in terms of psychology if you want to go in that direction. But it's kind of a thing where he was found. I mean, it's really
jumped out at me when I read the article. It's like he was found guilty but not guilty. He was sort of found like, okay, you did it, but because you've kind of got a mental illness which predisposes you to that kind of activity, you're sort of off the hook. So you don't have to go to jail. You can go to a mental institution, and I mean, I don't actually know if he's still serving time. Not quite sure about that.
Yeah, he's still in the institution as far as I remember. And they said that he was predisposed to doing this because of a mental disorder that would cause him to act out in that way. And I don't know what mental illness.
Yeah, I don't know what that means either. But when he was up for parole, certainly according to that article, is 2013. That's 8 years ago. So the question is, I guess, he's still where he was. I know people didn't want him to come out. People were worried. But if you go back to what I said earlier about, is it fetal alcohol syndrome?
Mm-hmm.
One wonders whether that could be a potential symptom of it. In other words, when his mother, if his mother was pregnant with him, if she drank alcohol, if that could have an impact on his lack of inhibition and poor impulse control, if that is a factor, or if you could say, no, that's absolutely irrelevant. Or if it's something to do with another substance, not necessarily alcohol or combination,
Yeah, I'm not sure the medical ways that syndrome is affected by the mother doing substances.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
So I mean, that's something I'm going to have to find a bit of information about. It starts to get medically quite complex. Yeah.
Like the development of the mind. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. So this aspect obviously brings into focus a potential history of assault of Summer, just as you had with John Benet Ramsey. And when you're dealing with a child, it can kind of be something that can appear to be, let's say, like vaginitis, or almost like a bladder infection, or much worse than that. But even if it appears to be something like vaginitis or bladder infection, it can still be pretty serious, right? I'm just saying, certainly in the John Benet Ramsey case, you had that, and then you had people minimizing it, saying, no, it's actually, it was a question of, it's so mild that it could actually be absent, to someone else saying, no, this is the work of a monster, as Lou Smith, I think, believed, right? So you've got that whole spectrum. And yeah, you kind of have that potentially again. I somehow believe it wouldn't be mild in this case. I think it would be quite extreme. I'm speculating, of course, but so what we're saying here is that aspect is possible. It's being brought into focus now as a possibility. And now the real question is, how probable is it? How probable is it given what we are starting to find out about some of the people in the story?
Even his oldest son.
Yeah.
And then who knows? And I was going to say, who knows about all the children and what they might have gone through. But like you said, that's not something we know for certain, but it seems like a possibility.
Yeah. Okay, so you want to read up number 4? Yeah.
Yep. Don also admits that Summer has shared a bed with him and Candace for years.
Yeah, that is pretty shocking.
And I found that odd that he would admit that when Chris McDonough had taken us into the basement where they sleep. You did see a bed, 2 beds. So there was like a little alcove where supposedly Summer slept, and then the parents' bed. So I thought that was strange that he would overshare that with Chris.
No,
Like,
totally.
why bring that up?
I mean, I think a lot of us were looking out for that. Okay, like, what are the sleeping arrangements? Oh, there's a bed and there's a bed. And I think that is something that we'll probably go over a couple of times. Is you'll look at how Candace says that is where Summer slept and that's where we slept, and kind of get a sense of why she's saying that, and is it true, and what was really going on here, right? So that's number 4. The shocker number 4. Don and Summer have shared a bed in the basement for 4 years, obviously, I guess, with Candace as well. So
Candace, yeah.
I don't really know what 4 years means, but it obviously means at least 2 years, maybe more. But this reminds me a little bit of.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, keep going.
I was gonna say, I think he gave Chris an actual time frame, but I didn't remember what that was, so I didn't put that. But I think he actually specifically told him for however many years.
Well, I think I heard that part, and I was also like, well, it wasn't a few weeks or a few months. It was, okay,
I see in chat they're saying 5 years.
Yeah. And that reminds me of Casey Anthony, where, when she left home, she took Kaylee with her, when she had a boyfriend. And then she was asked, well, where did Kaylee sleep when you slept over at your boyfriend? And I think she said, well, on the bed with us, kind of thing, right? And that's a little bit different when it's an infant. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just saying it's a little bit different when it's someone who's 1 or 2 years old, and then that going on to 3, 4, 5, right? And I think the other thing to mention is was this out of necessity? I'm sure there's some sort of people who are really sympathetic saying, give these people a break. They didn't have a lot of beds or whatever. But my question is, really, didn't they? Because there's another rusted bed, and that's why there's an arrow in the title to this, in the title image to this particular episode, pointing to that rusted bed. And maybe Alison could tell us, how long has that bed frame been there? Has it come out recently? Was it part of how the beds were moved around in the home in anticipation of people coming to snoop around? Has it always been there? What have the sleeping arrangements been relatively long term? And you would imagine that Alison and Macbeth would know this, because I think they stayed over there a couple of times, or I don't know if it was for an extended period, but one would imagine they would know that. So this does raise an issue, and I think I brought it up pretty early on in this case, is what are the sleeping arrangements of this family? Because they were so important in the John Benet Ramsey case, they were so important in the Madeleine McCann case. Even in the Gannon Storr case, it was like, why is this little boy sleeping in the basement? Is it by choice? What's going on there? The problem with a child being in the basement and then something happens to the child is something can happen to that child out of sight within the family by another family member. And, they don't have the benefit of someone who's good towards them or friendly towards them or loves them, passing them and encountering someone else doing something that they shouldn't be doing. The basement is a area where dark things can happen, and also where if a child is crying, no one can necessarily hear the child, kind of thing. Anyway, so I'm just going to read what I wrote here, that this sharing of the bed raises the issue. The sleeping arrangements in the basement, were they always like that, or is it represented that there's a second bed? In other words, for example, the the interview room? Was that something that was sort of orchestrated as a kind of pageantry? Look, here's a bed, here's another bed. Show the world this. Meanwhile,
Yeah,
that isn't how they were sleeping.
It was strange because they had like their, I think, a TV with like, I don't know if like the Wii or something, like video games were down there. Summer's toys were down there. It looked like it had been there for a little while, and it was unexpected that Chris was going to go to her house. However, maybe she anticipated that he would want to.
Yeah, something else I wanted to mention, and I agree that this is quite cynical, but it's just something that is in my true crime archive, which is, are you familiar with, in the OJ Simpson case, when the jury went to visit OJ's home, that they found all of these paintings and pictures on the walls, and actually what had happened was the defense, OJ's defense, had actually taken almost everything that was on the walls and changed them with, let's call it, jury appropriate stuff. So do you know what I'm talking about?
I didn't know that, no, but that doesn't seem right. Why that's not giving the jury a real look at the crime scene.
I wish I could remember the specific names and details, but like there was a particular famous painting that they put up, which I think was meant to trigger a certain response in some of the jury members. But they did all sorts of things. You know, I think the defense sort of looked at the inside of OJ's home and sort of thought, this is too kind of white, or it's gonna actually turn off the jury. We need something that's gonna make them feel a connection with OJ. You know what I mean? And so, but anyway, the point is that the artwork and the photos were switched around in order to influence someone sort of innocently walking in the home, kind of like, oh, wow, so this is who you are, right? And because you often get a sense, an impression of a person through their home and what's inside. And if you think about the Wells home, you might say, wow, I had a negative impression about that and that bothered me, and that and that and that. But on the other hand, there's a picture of Rosemary Bly on the wall. So, you know what? I actually think you've got to reserve judgment. But is that picture up there kind of strategically? Is it, you know, and was it always up there?
I think I had mentioned in Patreon that I had seen older pictures of those rooms from some time ago, and that picture was up. So that was there for a while, not just put up for show.
Yeah. But when you say older, do you mean a couple of weeks older?
I wouldn't know for certain. Someone posted them, but it was certainly not the day before. I'm not sure what the period of time was. May have been on Facebook.
Yeah, if it's on Facebook and it's like pre-Summer's disappearance, and I think you can make the case that it's a sincere memorial. But remember Alison saying there's no memorial for Rosemary. Now one wonders, do you remember her saying that?
I do. Mm-hmm.
So one wonders whether that is throwing stones or whether that was a legitimate point. And one can also, you know, imagine, I don't know whether at that point, if Alison had said that, could Candace have responded by putting the picture up? I don't know. But it's also possible that the picture has been up all along. I don't know whether that takes you anywhere necessarily. I think Chris McDonough said that picture shows the connection to the family member, but then I actually thought it was a little bit different, because when he asked her about her, Candace almost cut him off 3 times. She sort of said something like, it's difficult. You could see she didn't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
And you know, how often do you have the privilege or the, you know, in this situation of you've got a kind of freelance detective coming to your home and your sister's missing. Well, he has an opportunity to talk to the guy and say, maybe you can help me. Instead, she's got nothing to say, you know?
I would think that she would be so forthcoming with sharing about her sister, especially with her being still missing and Chris being there to help with finding Summer. I would think that she would be so appreciative to talk about what she knows about her sister, just who she was. Not to say nothing, it's difficult.
Okay. So maybe Alison, if Alison's watching, maybe she can confirm this, maybe even with Chris McDonough. Have the sleeping arrangements been modified, changed, whatever? I just want to put a little feather into your cap, Stephanie. When I've done lives, I think that the best I could achieve was 2,500 people in chat. Now they're 3,700. So obviously, America wants to see an American who is as beautiful as you.
No. Well, thank you for the
And
compliment.
clever.
This shows
Beautiful
all
and
the people
eloquent.
for Summer.
Yeah, yeah.
A lot of
Now I'm just
people
saying, I think
want
you're a draw card, Stephanie.
Oh, then you'll keep me around.
Yeah, okay. Anyway, enough joking around. Number 5, Don adapted the Don Jr. assault.
Yes. So the Don says that the SA committed by his son Don Jr. was with a 14-year-old girl when he was. No, I'm sorry. Chris shared that it was on Don. That Don committed it with a 14-year-old girl when he was 19, and Don had minimized that to it was an 18-month difference. It was when he was younger, and that's a big difference in age. I have an almost 14-year-old son, and 14-year-old child with a 19-year-old is completely inappropriate.
So, so yeah, we once again have a repetition of this thing of minimizing. That's what I think is quite valuable with this. You can kind of say we're starting to get a sense of how Don operates when he dissembles or when he's maybe being a bit economical. He will minimize, and so I think you've got to think about that in relation to a lot of things. When he talks about time, when he talks about whatever, that couldn't he be minimizing this? And maybe if you're questioning him, you could say in a kind of open-ended way, isn't there a bit more to this? Or are you sure there's you know, isn't there something else you want to add? Or are you sure that's true? You know, you could sort of prompt him a little bit in that way. If you're questioning him, but
Don did give a lot of I don't recall type of answers, so he wasn't elaborating.
Yeah, as soon as you say recall, you know, if you had to ask me like about my day, like right now, like 50 questions about my day, I don't think I would ever say I don't recall. I don't think I'd ever say that. I'd say I'm not sure, or maybe I did that. I'm not clear about that. I don't think I would ever say, you know, if you said, you know, what did you have for breakfast? I don't think I'd say I don't recall. You know, that's the kind of lawyers speak. That's when you're on the defensive. That's when it's you are guarded and defensive, right? So anyway, yeah.
I was just gonna say he has experience with avoiding things.
Yeah.
He's experience with avoiding, you know.
Heather West, thanks a lot. I just see in the corner of my eye your contribution there. Thanks for being there. Sorry if I missed a couple of super chats. I'm looking at lots of different things here, but I'll try and get back to them. Yeah.
I had also written that it's likely a pattern of behavior that Don Jr. experienced and witnessed growing up.
Yeah, and what's so disturbing about that is you kind of have a thing of what I mentioned quite early on, an intergenerational aspect. In other words, Don didn't just wake up and he's bad. He wasn't like a bad boy, just woke up, and it's something that perhaps was patterned or imprinted onto him, something, he didn't perhaps have a very good example, and perhaps his father before him. One would really want to know, where did this all start? If you could travel back in time and find where was the first bad seed, right? It would be interesting to be able to do that.
Yeah.
I think what's also interesting is how some of that gets broken. So in other words, you can have a chain and the one, the father and the son, and then the next son, and it carries on. But in certain cases, the chain is broken by someone who says, what, I don't want to live like this. I want to make something of myself. And then maybe they do it. Maybe wasn't that what Rosemary Bly was doing? I think she was a school teacher. I think she was wanting to write a children's book at the time that she disappeared. She seemed to have married a good guy. I don't know if that's true, but she seemed to be. There's a picture of her.
I don't know that that's true. I don't know that that's true.
Yeah, it might not be true, but
one of the suspects.
Oh, is it? Okay. But even so, one wonders whether did Rosemary try to break out of that life, and then that cost her life.
Yeah, I don't know.
So I've just written here, in terms of Don Jr. being 14 years old. Sorry, the girl that he was with was 14 and he was 19. I don't know if you guys remember, on June 22nd, a week into Summer's disappearance, he told the reporter from Times News that the age difference was 18 months, which is a year and a half. So that's not even half the actual age difference of 5 years, right? So you can see how the story is evolving. And, if you have a fragmented mindset, you may not imagine that other people out there have a very integrated mindset, and they keep track of what you say, and they keep track of the timeline, and they can see how things don't add up. They can see all these inconsistencies. And it might be a bit of a shock that it's not just a TBI that can do that. And of course, the extent to which your statements are inconsistent over and over again create more and more red flags. Why can't you just be honest about what's going on, right? As you said here, it was likely a pattern of behavior Don Wesley had witnessed growing up as well. So, Chris McDonough made a very good point, and I think Chris McDonough's got quite a lot of experience in this area through his work, and he basically said, where did Don Wesley, because it's a 14-year-old, where did this idea spring from? And I think that is an excellent question. Okay, so number 6 of the 11 shockers, Don throws the cops under the bus again.
So Don told Chris that when he got to his house, it was about 5:30. So that's different than what his wife has been saying. And I think he might have even said before that, I'm thinking 6:30. And he was upset that the police weren't there when he pulled up, since it took him 30 to 40 minutes to get there. And why was law enforcement not there yet? And Chris spoke to law enforcement and said that they were already there, when Don pulled up. And I was just wondering why such a blatant lie about something that is so easily verified by a former detective.
Okay. Lee, thanks for that. Lee says what Don does is called projective identification in psychology. Is that different to projection and transference? But a good point from Lee. Thanks a lot for that. So what I understood was that the cops were already there, but they were waiting at the driveway at the bottom of the road. It's unclear why. Why would is that how you understood it? That the cops were at the house, but not.
They were waiting at the bottom of the driveway.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and Candace, didn't she say she drove off to go try to find Summer?
Yeah.
So maybe she wasn't there, and that chain link
that's quite a good
fence
point. That's quite a good point because,
was locked. And I think, I don't know, some people were wondering, is it just something you just switch open, like twist open, or is it a keypad? I'm thinking it's something like with a key, like a lock with a key.
I think it's a chain, and then there's a like a padlock.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Mentioned. Yeah.
So maybe they had to wait.
I mean, to add to what you're saying, when maybe it's slightly different, but when Robin Lane arrived there, she was also couldn't get to the house. She was stuck at the road, by the driveway, but with the police, and they said, "Sorry, you can't go up." So there's a lot of people congregating there. I think David Dodson as well, and then they later on were allowed up. But it does make one wonder: was Candace not there herself? Was Don not there? Were they both not there? What's the story? But what I think comes out of this, which I think is really interesting, is that one does have the impression that Don wasn't there, right? From what Chris McDonough
According
said.
to law enforcement, he was not there.
Yeah.
And he said law enforcement wasn't there.
Yeah, so
and he also
I don't know whether Don expected Chris McDonough to sort of take his word for it and then tell everyone that, and I don't know whether that's what Don hoped for or expected, but what Chris McDonough did was he cross-checked his story with law enforcement. Law enforcement said, no, actually, from what I understood, they were there and Don wasn't. And that's not a good look for Don, that's for sure. Because it does call into question the timeline. And the timeline, it's like I've been saying for quite a while, the answer is time. And in a simple thing like, when did he get home? So let me just go through this.
It's a whole hour,
Yeah. Would it be impossible, theoretically, for law enforcement to be on the scene? Sorry, it would be impossible, theoretically, for law enforcement to be on the scene at 5:30, because Candace only called 911 at 6:30. So that, again, rubbishes Don's story. I mean, it's not logical. And it also contradicts what Candace said. Candace said, I'm not actually sure who said 6:30, but I know that is the version of events in the mainstream media and kind of what the police said, that the police got called at 6:30. So I'm pretty sure that is carved in stone, that is factual. It might be 6:29 or 6:31, but it's basically 6:30. In this version of events from Don, which I think is the second most important revelation of late, he arrived home at 5:30, which means Candace had to have called him at approximately 10 to 5, 4:50. That's based on his story that she called him 40 minutes ago, that it had taken him 40 minutes to get home from wherever he was, right? And some people have said, well, was he driving his own truck that day? If he
Don
wasn't,
says
why
no.
wasn't he?
Don
Yeah, so
told
if he
Chris he was
wasn't,
driving the red Subaru.
yeah, so if he wasn't, why wasn't he? And if he wasn't, what was he actually doing?
Yeah, you would think he
So-
would take his work truck to work.
Yeah, especially given the work that he does. So if it's true that Candace called him at 10 to 5, if that's true, then why did Candace only call 911 at 6:30? Meaning, they've both been saying they knew immediately that it was an abductor. They knew immediately it's an abductor. So why did it take 100 minutes to call 911 if you knew immediately? It's 100 minutes from 10 to 5 to 6:30. That's where the 100 minutes comes from. 1 hour and 40 minutes. So in her version of events and Don's, they both knew Summer was abducted immediately. So where's the urgency? Where's the conviction based on that stated knowledge? And that is another problem. The flip side of the story is if Don arrived and the cops were already there, then it means he only arrived home after 6:30. So there's no way the cops could have arrived there before they called 911. And perhaps if 911 was called, the cops only got there at 6:40 or even later. Remember, it's quite a rural area. So we don't know when the police arrived, but I'm sure the police know when they arrived. And whenever they arrived, Don must have arrived either simultaneously or afterwards. If what's been conveyed is correct. If the other part of his story is true, and Candace did call him at 4:50 in order for him to be at the property 40 minutes later, but if he only arrived almost 2 hours later, then what was he doing? So I don't know, but what it's looking like, just from the kind of glossing over what is being said, it's looking like there's 2 hours that are not accounted for, and that is a very, very serious problem. Very serious problem.
Yeah.
Where were you for 2 hours?
Yeah.
So as I've said here, as Chris McDonough states and Stephanie notes, the cops said they were there when Don arrived. This suggests to me that Don was the last to arrive, but one of the first to find out. That is and I've written this in all caps, serious red flag right then. Guess what it's got to do with? The timeline. In this period, this critical period, where were you? What were you doing? Okay, and that
Doesn't
brings
seem
us
like he
to,
got there in 30 to 40 minutes.
Yeah. If you think about the Chris Watts case, Stephanie, you kind of had a similar-ish situation where Nicole Atkinson called Chris Watts. I'm not sure when the first call came in, if it was 10 or 11 o'clock, but it was somewhere around there mid-morning, right? And she was kind of summoning him home, saying, I think something's wrong with Shanann, or something was wrong. And although she didn't say, I'm calling the police now or come home now, she was kind of saying, can you come home? I'm kind of worried. It took him something like an hour or two to get back from the well site, but part of that time, he wasn't, although he even said, I'm on my way, he wasn't on his way, right? And also on his way home, what did he do? He disposed of, we know this from some of his second confessions. I mean, some of us figured it out beforehand based on the GPS, but we know that he disposed of, I think, clothing and possibly the kids' blankies at that address at Black Mesa, just around the corner from Saratoga Trail.
The dumpsters.
So, yeah. How do you say Mesa? You say Mesa?
I say Mesa, but
Okay.
Mesa.
Yeah. How does that saying go? Mikasa, Sukasa. Maybe not quite the same thing. Anyway, so what I'm trying to get at is the disguising of something instrumental, something significant in, oh, I was just coming home from work. I'm just saying that Chris Watts provides a little bit of a glimpse at how you can disguise something that's critical to everything in, oh, no, I was just coming home from work. Oh, really? Well, why didn't you just come from A to B? Because that isn't what Chris Watts did. He didn't just come from A to B. And even the GPS showed he didn't come the shortest route home. He came via that address where there was like a red dumpster. And just good luck for Chris Watts. They weren't actually able to find whatever he put there. Cadaver dogs did bark there. I don't know whether they were alerting, but they were barking there. And it's just frustrating, that part of the whole thing. I'm just saying a lot can be achieved using a vehicle as a tool within the scheme of a crime. You know, we've seen that quite a few times.
I think we'll see that with this case too, when we get the data from the cell phones, and if there's GPS on vehicles. I think that Candace's was a newer one, so maybe hers did.
Well, someone was saying to me, I can't wait for Nick to do the phone data review for this case. Well, you know, the Chris Watts case, we were really spoiled with this incredibly detailed phone data review. And not only that, people who were constantly on their phones. You know, Shanann was constantly on her phone. Chris Watts was on his phone quite a lot. We didn't really get much from Nicole Kissinger, but we didn't get nothing. I don't know whether that's going to be the case here for a couple of reasons. One is the cell phone reception is spotty. Yeah, I don't, and I also don't know whether.
I think they use an awful lot of social media.
Yeah,
there's
they did.
There's a lot of Facebook posts. There's a lot of TikToks. I mean,
yeah.
I'm older than Candace. I don't use TikTok. I don't know.
Yeah, same. I don't either. No, so you're absolutely right. There could be an extraordinary amount of that kind of traffic. But the other side of it is, you've seen what the discovery's been like so far in the Morphew case, which is nothing. We're not giving you anything. And it's not. And in this case, there are quite a few minors, and they might say, and in the Morphew case, they're also minors or daughters, and a defense person might argue, sorry, off limits, you get nothing, or you wait 2, 3, 4 years before you do get something. So the Chris Watts case, we were really sort of spoiled with just being handed over everything, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know whether that's
had the content before they redacted stuff.
Yeah, I don't know whether that's going to happen here. I mean, I think one question to ask, just hypothetically, when did the 911 call come out in the Chris Watts case? And that's something, I don't know whether it's a problem. Can we hear the 911 call? Can Chris McDonough maybe, you know?
You mean Summers' case?
Yeah.
Okay, in other words, you said the Chris Watts case.
No. The question is, when did the 911 call come out in the Chris Watts case? I think it came out fairly. I think it came out before the discovery, didn't it? It was played in like documentaries.
I'm not sure. I think it. Are you talking about the welfare check?
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. But that call to the police from Nicole Atkinson.
Yeah, that came. I don't remember if that came first.
Yeah, but
I don't remember, but I remember hearing that early. Everything was early on.
Yeah.
Very quickly.
So I wonder when we could hear that. When we could hear the 911 call. Yeah.
Would clear up a lot.
Okay, so that brings us to the 8th point. Where were the boys? Where were the boys when Don got back?
According to Don, the boys were outside by the shed when he got to the house. So they were inside when Summer went missing, and I guess this is insinuating that they maybe were looking for her.
How did you understand that? Like, how did you understand where they were?
I was thinking there's the shed that Don was possibly hiding in. I was thinking it was that shed. So that would be out back. And I think that Don had said he drove past the driveway and he could see the boys up by the shed. That was my impression.
Okay. I don't want to be nitpicky, but is there another shed on that property?
I would say it's very possible, but I don't remember.
You know, if you,
I don't recall. I don't remember.
There you go. I think we're going to have to, after this, you're going to have to come out for questioning about all sorts of other things. So, yeah, I mean, that's another thing is when you talk to people about certain things, their vocabulary influences you. So, you know, when Don used the word elusive, I mentioned that as something of one of the words that stood out during the Sermon on the Mount, right? He may have been around law enforcement or someone, and they were saying, wow, you know, this is proving to be very elusive, and he's heard this word again and again, and then he adopts it. We saw Chris Watts doing the same thing, sort of picking up certain words and so on that you sort of feel like he's not hijacked, but he's sort of appropriated, you know?
Mm-hmm. I noticed that chat is saying that there were 2 sheds, and I do remember seeing an abandoned building. I don't know if that's considered a shed, like a smaller, maybe that was the other shed.
So what I wanted to explain a moment ago is what's quite interesting with that road is it goes up. So you've got the house. So weird. I'm looking at a reverse mirror image of myself. So you've got the road. I'm not quite sure how to do this. Anyway, I'm not going to use my hands. I'll just have to try and explain it. You've got the road going up, and then the house is, I think, on your left as you go up. But that entrance to the sort of the kitchen or the front door, the door that Candace came out of, that entrance is actually facing away from you as you're coming up the road. So in other words, it's out of sight. It is facing away from you as you drive up. At the same time, my impression of, I think I must just acknowledge the super chat. Sorry to...
Very generous.
Mary Elizabeth, thanks, Mary. Are you saying Stephanie's amazing? Yeah, she is.
No.
Okay, so...
I'm trying really hard because I do have ADD, and
really?
I've been at Everest, on the Everest discussion, I was told that I was interrupting too much, so I'm trying to really be more sensitive about that.
No, not at all. So, so if you think about it as you're driving up the driveway, that critical area where someone was supposed to have walked into the front door from Grandma's trailer, not only that door, but the trailer are kind of behind the house from the perspective of when you're driving up. So in other words, it's out of line of sight, it's obscured, you just can't see it, right? And so no, you can't have any witness to counter that, to say, you know what, I was actually sitting on the driveway at that time, I didn't see anything, or, you know, something like that. Whether that's coincidental, whether that house is built that way, engineered that way, that you can kind of, you know, come in and out. I don't know whether that's just the way it is. Maybe it's got something to do with the direction of the sun and the wind. I don't know. I just think that's quite interesting, is that faces away from you as you approach. So theoretically, if someone's approaching and you want to exit, no one's going to see you. You can kind of exit through that door and then go down, and you know, you can get out of there without anyone seeing you. You can leave the residence, and just think about that, how odd that is. How many houses do you know where when you exit through the front door, you're facing away from the road that approaches the house? almost every house, the front door is where you you drive, you stop, and you walk to the front door, right? So another thing that I'm not sure if you noticed, if you sort of carry on with that road, so the road, I'm not talking about the road terminating where the shed is. There seems to be another road that sort of curls around, which you see in the aerial view. And it seems to go, I'm not sure if it goes down again, but it seems to sort of go into quite a thick area of trees. And there seems to be a building in that area, which seems to be slightly lower down from the house, that is almost completely either overgrown or shielded with vegetation. That's another area where it's there, but no one's really gone in there or to look at what that is. It kind of looks like a shed. It's quite a biggish building.
Yeah, it looks abandoned and.
Yeah. But it's sort of lower down, and so I think you're right. I think that when Don said he drove past the house to the shed, I do think he meant the shed that yeah.
That makes sense.
It's just that on a thing like that, I tend to kind of go, can we just be absolutely sure? Because maybe there is a second shed, and because almost the way that he explained it, I kind of got the sense that he sort of drove, and then the police were there, and he actually drove right by. That was the impression I got. I didn't get the impression.
Yeah, if you see all, sorry.
Yeah, sorry, from the impression that, and this part I did hear on the live, I didn't get the impression that he stopped, spoke to the police, and then drove up to the house. I kind of got the impression that he drove by, and I could be wrong. I'm just saying that's how I heard it, and it was a bit odd. I was like, wow, you drove, just the way that I heard it, it sounded like he drove by and then he encountered the boys. I guess it must be on the road below the house, right? And as I said, I could be wrong, but if that's true, then it's kind of serious. And again, that's point number 8. Where were the boys? So I'm just going to read what I wrote in response to your note here. I said, how I understood this part was that Don drove past the driveway when he initially arrived, and the boys were outside by the shed. I may have misunderstood. Is there a shed lower down? And I think when I'm saying this, I'm actually suggesting there may be even another shed besides the one when the road curls down. There may actually, because it's an 11-acre property, there may even be another shed that is sort of part of the property, but further down the road. Because that area is full of sheds. That part of Tennessee, there's sheds everywhere. So was there kind of another shed? I could be wrong. It could be no, just a shed that's up there. But if you think about it a little bit further, it could be relevant how far the boys were away from home, given their parents believing that Summer was abducted. So if Summer's abducted, why are the boys not inside and okay, wow, we've got to make sure you're okay. You know what I mean? If the abductor was out there, an abductor of a child, why on earth would you send more children out to find him? And there's some very young children there. You know what I'm saying? And if you weren't even sure it was an abductor, you might think, well, it could be an animal. Even less so, you'd say, well, I'm not going to send another child out there, you know. Instead, wouldn't you keep them inside the safety of your home, or have a policeman stand watch over them? And again, this brings into mind the intertextuality of the McCann case. Someone actually said, can you please print a T-shirt with the word intertextuality on it?
I think you should. I want one.
First time I've heard that one.
One of my favorite things that you do is
Look, when it's quite interesting. When I started writing, I was very inclined to do that, and I had a co-author, an American co-author, and she said, I don't know if you should do that, and for example, sometimes there were intertextualities that I brought up, for example, on the Amanda Knox case, and she said, you know what, you could actually turn some readers off because if they disagree with your point, then they're going to stop reading it. And I just thought that is a problem, but that is how my work is differentiated from other people. So you either go along with it and see where I'm coming from. You can maybe suspend belief or suspend disbelief, or you can reject it. And it was a little bit of a gamble that I took, but I always felt like we need to be making connections here, not only within the fabric of one case, but intertextually between different cases, and that's kind of it's a kind of a way of profiling. It's a kind of way of psychological profiling, which in a narrative sense is actually very sticky. You can see exactly what's happening.
It's thought-provoking. I appreciate the points that you bring up with different cases and allowing me to consider things that I didn't.
If you think of true crime, the reason crimes happen as fragmented minds and fragmented stories and inconsistencies and things that don't fit, then the opposite of that is things that do fit, continuity, congruency, integration. And so you're trying to find all the connections that you possibly can and connect everything together, the backstories, the context, the weather, and you bring it all together. And one of the best ways to do that is through the timeline. Another way is through the identity of a person. A person can pretend that they're not a person at a moment in time, but their backstory is going to indicate something else. Their backstory is going to show, wow, you have a pattern of this behavior. And one of the things that I think is being questioned right now is, does Don have a temper? And if Don does have a temper, what kind of temper does he have? Is it that level, or is it that level, or is it that level? And he's already mentioned that Candace has a temper. Well, does she have is hers at this level or that level? What's sort of going on here? And then also, what's that temper like under the influence, kind of thing? Do you think I should read this part? Yeah.
Oh, I was just going to say, do you find it strange that when Don went home, he went by his driveway? Did he do that because the police were there? Or he thought his boys would be by this shed? It just seems odd that he raced home and then drove by his driveway.
Well, even if you take the literal version that he arrived home, and I mean, why wouldn't he park almost right in front of the door? Wouldn't you? You're trying to get home as fast as possible. Why would you drive a bit further on and park by the shed? Why wouldn't you park right by the you know what I'm saying? Right by the front door. Even Chris Watts, if you remember Chris Watts, when he stopped his truck, he kind of stopped it behind those trees. Do you remember? When he arrived back, he didn't stop at when he arrived back home from the well side. He didn't actually stop at the closest point to where...
he pulled past his driveway. Yeah.
So his truck was kind of... I mean, if you were still looking through Trinasic's video, you wouldn't... I don't know if you could see his truck from that angle, right? And so one wonders, is that intentional, or was he actually just trying to get around the police vehicle that was parked there? But if you think about it just in a logical way, he always parked in front of his own front door, you know what I mean? He always parked in terms of his front door
on the other side,
kind of where the grass was, and now he's parking all the way past it, kind of where the driveway is. And you kind of got to ask, wouldn't anybody else? I mean, why didn't he even turn his truck onto the driveway and stop right where? And I think the answer is he wanted a little bit of time so he could run to the back and do something in the back. I don't know, but he wanted a little bit of time to do whatever he needed to do. And I don't know whether you can take that this far with Don, but it also doesn't make sense. Why wouldn't you just drive to the front door, the closest point, and just stop there? It doesn't matter how it looks, and if it's an emergency and the police are there, take the shortest distance. Yeah. Do you think I should read out this part about the McCann's behavior with their twin children? I think I'm gonna. I don't know if that's strictly relevant here. So let's move on to the 9th point. Boys interrupted.
We learned that the boys are currently in protective services, and they have been separated from one another. I had thought that they were taken and kept together, and perhaps they were, but now the 3 of them have been separated.
Yeah. Now, do you think that is? Do you think that is for their benefit, or how can I put it? Like, do you think it's better for the boys themselves to be separated?
I think both. I think it's maybe better for them. I don't know their dynamics between the brothers. But also they'll maybe be more likely to share their individual sides of what they experienced that day. I think it could be both. I think it could be for their benefit and to gather some more information.
Maybe I'm out of line when I say this, but I don't think it was done for the benefit of the boys. Like, I would have imagined the 3 boys being taken out of their own home, there'd be a little bit of a sense of continuity, a little bit of a sense of things aren't so different if we're together. We can, an older brother can comfort the younger brother. It's okay, and they can, sleep in the same room or whatever it is, play together, and they have each other. They've got the familiar faces of one another. But to take these 3 boys, and one of them is quite young. How old is the youngest child? Is it like 7 or?
I'm not sure. Someone in chat would probably know.
Anyway, to separate them, I think is.
I was thinking like 7.
Yeah.
Or someone says 9 is the youngest.
Oh, 9. Okay. It is still fairly young. Still young. I mean, that's Burke Ramsey's age, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that the boys have been separated may mean we may well get some intel from 1, 2, or all 3 of them. We might get a fragment from one, another fragment from another, different or the same, and another fragment from another, different or the same from the same again. But it'll be interesting to see how their stories align or not. But that adds another dimension of complexity to this case. Important now are their respective connections to Summer. So, now that they're away from their parents can't control them. Now, how are they going to be influenced? What are they going to do? What glue is holding them to whom? And so on their own, what is going to be revealed? Or is there going to be kind of a situation of like the silence of the lambs, or are they going to be quiet? Having been separated, I'm not going to say anything. Maybe they were told, don't say anything. But think about that youngest child. If he is 9 years old, but the youngest child, was that youngest child closest to Summer? If they were closest in age, often with children, the siblings who are closest in age are quite close. Isn't that true?
Yeah.
Especially when
they might have had I don't know what their being close. They may have been the closer as siblings than the older boys were.
Yeah.
It's just really sad. It's just so sad.
Something that came up somewhere. Someone said that Summer and the youngest child slept in the same bed, I think in the basement. I can't quite remember where that came
I
from or
think
who that
Candace
came
might have
from.
mentioned that at one point, but there's so many discrepancies in every little detail that it's like one
So
big
again,
red flag.
that is like, so what's true? You know, it's yet another version of events. I don't know about you, but if you just imagine this idea of a little child sleeping with one or two parents that are either one or both are intoxicated, that even from the outside, that seems pretty terrifying. Just that idea, you know, and you could
I can't
have one
imagine.
parent getting angry about something, especially if it's happening regularly. You know, once in a blue moon's not the end of the world, but if it's happening constantly, then that's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's go to number 10. This is the second last shocker. Blood samples were taken.
Yes, we were wondering, and we found out authorities did take blood samples from Don and Candace. Don said Candace tested positive for marijuana. So
Okay,
that might have been part of that day, or part of that day and prior.
So that is yet another substance added to the mix. So what I wrote here was, and I mentioned this fairly early on, possibly in my Why It Wasn't an Abduction video. This was a crucial step by law enforcement, and it's excellent news that blood samples were taken. I'm not sure marijuana was all that came up in Candace's sample. Now, bear in mind, I've said this earlier, that you've got to be careful what Don says because he minimizes. So, you know, if he says, you know what, the police did take a blood sample, you know what they found in Candace? Marijuana. But what if it was marijuana and that, and that, and that, and that? And so you think, wow, we've just found out that there was marijuana. But actually, it's a way of throwing you off the trail, throwing you off the track by giving you a little bit instead of everything. So you think, oh, so that's the answer to that, when it's just part of the answer to that. Was there no alcohol in her blood that day? Was there nothing else besides that?
Well, we know there was some. We don't know how much.
And then the other thing is, how about Don's blood? Because I think he admits that they also took blood samples from him, and so it's like, yeah, the cops took blood samples from me and Candace, and guess what? They found marijuana in Candace's blood. Oh, well, that's incredible. Okay, but hold on, Don, what about you?
I think he might have told him that he didn't have any substances found in his.
Oh, is it? Oh, okay. Okay.
I guess we don't know.
But it is kind of interesting that he doesn't say something like, yes, they did do blood tests, and then nothing more. You know, why not protect Candace? Why not withhold that part, you know, that information? You know what I mean? Why say that they found marijuana? He doesn't have to say that.
I don't. It's almost like he's trying to be honest enough that you find him believable, but not enough to be honest. I feel like he's trying to be like, oh, this happened, but you know, it's not good, and I'm telling you this, so you should believe me about everything else.
I think it's that, but I think it's also good old self-preservation. You know, if someone else is the bad girl, I'm the good guy, you know?
Yeah.
If you think about
more self-preservation now than ever.
Yeah. So recreational drugs tend to remain in the system for some time. Besides that, as I say, what were Candace's blood alcohol levels when they tested her? And perhaps that's why you might say, why did Candace take so long to call the cops? Like, what was she doing? Well, one possible answer to that might be that call was timed to make sure there wouldn't be anything in her system. Maybe that was why there was this delay. And you could theoretically say something similar about the Amanda Knox case. There was also a very long critical delay, and you might say, what was that all about? Because there's definitely that narrative in that case as well. So some people have mentioned Candace's hair is short to limit the time record in that area, since hair provides a chemical timeline for the volume and pacing of drug uptake in the body. I think that's quite an interesting point. I don't know what I think about that. It could be practical for practical purposes. It could be for things that have happened there, the lice problems. It could actually be a combination of all three.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I mean, we have seen some pictures where Candace's hair is really, really long.
Yeah, and then there was the learning that there might have been lice or fleas, and so I don't know if it's that, or she was thinking ahead about CPS, that she was. I just don't know that she was thinking that.
Sorry to interrupt. Someone made a really good point, saying that staphylococcus thing. It's got several letters in the name. So I can't remember if it was MRSA or something.
MRSA.
Yeah, someone was saying that could actually have come from the home itself. That this staphylococcus was actually kind of in the home, and so if you think about it, was it the Don's mother? Don's mother may actually have gotten the serious sickness inside the house rather than got it somewhere else. And you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I don't know.
Okay, so that brings us to the 11th and final point. Drug dealers did it.
Yeah, we mentioned this briefly with another point, that Don said that drug dealers have access to the property, one of which worked for him, and he had fired that worker a day or two before Summer went missing. So if this is true, this is putting other people having access to the property.
Okay. I'm just looking at some of the comments here. They definitely needed to keep tetanus shots up to date. Sepsis, yeah. Okay. But isn't that quite handy? The drug dealers came up to the property right at the time someone disappeared. So the drug dealers did it. Isn't that really handy? As I mentioned earlier, the problem with this story is it's actually more incriminating than it is exonerating. Why? Because first it suggests Candace and Don were using, I'm saying suggest, that Candace and Don were using right up to the moment Summer came to grief. I mean, did the dealer just arrive there willy-nilly, or was he summoned? Was he called, or did he call and they said, yeah, come on over? So call records will be quite important once again. The other issue is if the dealer is Don's NBS, which is new best suspect. And if that's the case, if this dealer is the best suspect, then why not give the guy's name? You're looking for your daughter and you think the abductor is this guy, then why not, let's have a picture. Let's figure it out. Let's polygraph him, or talk to him, or exclude him or include him. But why is it sort of like, yeah, well, it could be the drug dealer? I mean, where's the urgency and conviction there? Why wouldn't you identify him? Yeah, no, it's true. It's true. But you kind of get the feeling, like if you go through the timeline of the interviews, the abductors only mentioned, like, I think in the second or third one. So why wouldn't you mention that right in the beginning,
immediately.
right? Yeah. You could, playing devil's advocate a little bit, you could say, well, Don's would be understandably a little nervous of full disclosure of something coming back to him if he's too honest, which I think in a weird way is the moral of the story. I can't be too honest because of that and that and that. I mean, as I say, hasn't that been the theme all along? Ever since Summer went missing 48 days ago, we'll talk, but we can't give you all the details. We'll help, but we're a little resigned and resistant because we have a truckload of skeletons in the closet. This does seem to be a case where there are a lot of skeletons in the closet, not just for one person or two people, but one after the other. It's kind
That's
of
why
a
there's so
rabbit
many
hole.
rabbit holes.
Yeah, it's like a rabbit hole without ends. Rabbit holes into rabbit holes.
And Chris McDonough from the interview room, he had shared that he was gonna, I think, put together a video about the things that he discussed, and I'm sure a lot of the ones that we took note of from his live, and that he was going to be like bleeping out some of the names that were mentioned. But you're right. It's 48 days, or I guess it was however many days in to give that name. You would think it would be the first thing that would come to mind if that had happened.
Is today day 48 or day 49? I think it's day 48.
Oh, I could be wrong.
It was quite easy when it was still July, but now that there's been the extra day, it's a little bit.
It's 48 or 49, but that's a long. It's too long.
I wonder whether the I think it is day 48. I wonder whether law enforcement.
I just
keep going. I wonder whether law enforcement have in their minds kind of a timeline where they're like, okay, at 50 days, if this hasn't happened, or if they've got any kind of schedule in their mind, because it also makes you wonder. In the Barry Morphew case, did someone decide, okay, on the 1 year anniversary, we're gonna move in, we're gonna give it a year? Did someone decide that, or did it just happen?
I think my understanding is that all the cell phone data that was taken will be ready for analyzing by day 60. I guess it could take up to 60 days. So I wonder if they're waiting for some validation on some points that they aren't clear on. And it's day 48 day 48. So it's almost day 60.
Okay. Before we get to the thing that stood out the most, I think let's just go into chat for a while. It's so weird on my phone. You and the images of you and me are so clear. They're like crystal clear, and yet on the screen it's well, I'm certainly pretty fuzzy. Quite frustrating.
You're not fuzzy for me.
Not.
Mm-mm.
Well, I think on screen to everyone else, I might be quite fuzzy. Anyway, let's have a look at some of these questions. So I'm going to ask you guys what stood out to you guys the most. What is the biggest red flag of that came out of Chris McDonough's discussion with Don? Oh, someone says not at all fuzzy. That's nice. Oh, it's weird that it's fuzzy with me here, like on my screen. Okay. Thanks, Lisa. Okay, do you guys have any questions or comments? By the way, someone asked, who is Stephanie? Stephanie, who are you?
I don't know. I'm a mod on the channel. Some of you may recognize my name, Stephanie Herb, as the screen name that I use. That's my name. Been a member for a long time, and I pop in and out of chats, different
So
channels.
Stephanie often assists me with research, or she'll send a link to a story, or point something out or whatever. So she's very kind of on the ball, very up to date with what's going on. She's kind of like a super fan, but also very kind of clued up with what's going on. So that's who Stephanie is. She's also a mom, and you've just celebrated your 15th anniversary, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that the silver anniversary?
Thank you so much for all the kind comments in chat. I haven't been looking at them. I've been focusing on my conversation with Nick, so I will definitely go back and look at the chat if it's still there later. I appreciate it, because I'm very nervous, yeah. And I hope that if we have a follow-up, and hopefully including more people on the live streams to come and share input, that it'll be more of a conversation flow between us rather than reading from our notes. No, so this was kind of like not an experiment, but a first go at it.
Someone asked, are you like an assistant?
No.
I don't see you as an assistant. I kind of see you as I don't know, you're an independent person with your own interests, but you do assist me, and you are very energetic, and you've got a lot of ideas, and yeah.
Well, I think we've developed a friendship and respect.
Yeah, I don't think we've really got a name for like our how we work together. You know, it's just something that sort of evolved, and you've been very helpful, and we sometimes share thoughts and ideas. Someone made a really good point. Elizabeth Camille, thanks a lot. Check out Red Drum MC in Tennessee. Okay. Someone made a really good point that, you know, when Stephanie leaves comments or says certain things in chat, it's so so useful, and it's not just useful, but it's interesting. It's kind of on point, just because Stephanie's so informed and up to date and level-headed about a lot of the stuff that's going on. And so she's quite a good. You're quite a good guide to someone who's sort of new here, and that's why you're such a great moderator as well. You can gently point some folks into the right direction, I reckon. Collaborator. Finola says, I'm your assistant.
No way.
Did you see Wonder Woman? Did you see Wonder Woman where Grandma Green, thanks a lot. She says, nice to see you, Stephanie. I feel sorry for
crime. Didn't you say I was your true sister in crime or something? Remember that?
Did I say that?
Sister in true crime.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh. I appreciate everybody sticking with us as long as you did.
Perfect moderator.
I tried to be a good listener. Normally I'm a rambler. I ramble.
CSX Baltimore subdivision. In the photo of Summer on the back seat, you can see the red car, and Don stated that he drove that car that day. Don was there. It's difficult to say. There have been times where it does look like a red vehicle in the background. Look, I'm a photographer, and I can't say for sure what that is. It could be quite a few things. It could be a red tote. It could be quite a few different things. I'm not sure if I still believe it is a red vehicle. It could be. It's maybe the shadows version of this case.
I see a couple comments in chat saying, no offense, next time just Nick. And I don't take offense. It's not going to be me every time. This is just, every so often, and we'll include different people. So don't worry. He's not going to have me at every live from now on or anything.
Whoever said that, no offense, but we're kind of going into a new phase of True Crime Rocket Science. We're going to have more interactive chats, not less. We might actually have some that you guys won't even see, sort of exclusive to Patreon. I don't know what it'll be. It might be 1 a month or 2 a month or whatever. There are quite a few excellent folk on Patreon who I certainly want to see them and hear their voices and hear their opinions rather than have it sort of behind typed comments.
It's more personal.
Yeah, and we're quite a happy community, and so we that's something I definitely want to do, and even in more people in the chat, like 4, 5, 6 people, and that's something that Patreon really needs. We might do this occasionally on YouTube, the way we're doing it now, but yeah, it's definitely something that's going to actually be happening more often, not less often. As I said earlier on, I mean, in this chat, we've actually reached a record, and it was with Stephanie being here. I don't know whether it's because of the hype around this case, but I think
it is a lot of people wanted to hear about Summer.
Yeah. Grandma Green, nice to see you. Okay, sorry, that we've already seen that one.
And I don't know if she's still here, but Tiffany Marie has done a fabulous job on her channel. She's actually the one that had us do the experiment with resting our heads on the milk cartons and seeing how long we could do that. And I thought that was just such a good
that's a brilliant example of someone who's totally a true crime.
And she even said, make sure your cheek and your ear are on it, just like Summer's. And we did.
I mean, the fact that you actually acted that out and experienced it, that is next level. I mean, that's good work. I mean, the best way to figure a lot of this stuff out is put yourself literally in someone else's shoes, or imagine yourself in that situation.
If she was sleeping, she was in a deep sleep, because we didn't last much more than a couple minutes before it was really uncomfortable.
I don't think she was sleeping. I don't think she was conscious.
Yeah. And someone said that Tiffany got the idea from Jewels of Thought, and that's another wonderful channel and resource.
So I must say, another area where Stephanie helps me is I don't, because I honestly don't have time. I don't sort of channel surf, and there's some videos that are hours long or whatever. I just don't have time to see all of it. I sort of choose what I want to listen to, and then to some extent I've got to shut myself off because I've got to make my case, right? Like today, I actually was like, I don't want to do the Sermon on the Mount part 2 because it's just too draining. I kind of need a break. I need to refresh, because that kind of laser, like focus, it's really, really draining, and you don't want to do it too much too often. But it is helpful having someone that is somewhere else, and in a way it gives you some kind of omniscience. And what's nice with Patreon is you've got a group of people who are quite different, but they're interested in the same thing, and they bring different facets to the case, and so that they'll provide links to sometimes totally different crimes and sometimes to different content, and then people discuss it, and then you get, what helps me is it helps me to be omniscient. I get a lot of information I wouldn't have gotten otherwise, and I have a community discussing it, going, yeah, that makes sense. And you realize what priority to give these huge amounts of information that are coming out all over. I just want to touch on Christopher Marshburn. Thanks, Christopher. Christopher writes, Don's drug dealer is the same drug dealer Candace was messaging on her phone on the date of the disappearance, ? Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. But we know that Macbeth spoke about finding messages about that on her phone. So it certainly is a compelling question.
I think it's done, or something like that, to that effect. It's done. If that is true, and they'll have that from the cell phone data.
Yeah, someone was saying, what are we waiting for? Why is nothing happening? Bebop, thanks a lot. And it kind of gives the impression that law enforcement are stuck, or they've been outwitted, or this case is going nowhere, or whatever. And I think it couldn't be further from the truth. I think they've got a lot of information.
They're working really hard.
Yeah, I think they have a lot. It's probably quite difficult for them not to just play their cards, given what they know. But I think the thing they really want and need is the thing that we are all, that's why we're all here, is, and it's kind of the most important element, which is Summer. Where is Summer? What happened to her? Because if you find Summer, probably 40% or 50% of the whole mystery is then solved, just like that. You if you find her, where she is, how she is all going to, in a almost, very, very quickly reveal that. But of course, the more time goes by, the more all of that revelation gets sort of muddied and not so clear. And so the police are trying really, really hard, the law enforcement are trying really, really hard to find her. And that, to me, is the biggest mystery of this case. I've heard some people saying, I'm not interested in this case. We all know what happened, blah, 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 blah. Well, the mystery
we need to
is...
find that baby girl.
The mystery is, where is Summer? And it's 48 days. That's a long time. It's a very odd scenario that is taking place here. If you think about John Benet Ramsey, how long did that take? It was about 7 hours. And even that was quite weird. Now we've got 48 days.
Do you remember how long it was for Gannon? How long did that take? That was less than 40 days,
about a month and a half. I think it was a month and a half to 2 months. She was arrested before they actually found Gannon, which is also quite interesting.
Someone's asking, do you offer a membership? I don't think that you've done that for the channel.
Yeah, I haven't done that on YouTube. You can become a patron on Patreon for $1, and then you're part of that community. I haven't done memberships here. I guess I'm one of the old, part of the old guard who believe the internet wants to be free, kind of thing. So we're not quite there yet.
I appreciate it. It's hard to keep up with all my favorite channels, memberships and Patreons and super chats. It's a lot, but
so I'm going to throw something out there.
You definitely would, you work hard.
Yeah. I'm going to throw something out there. Stephanie, I think you're going to know who I'm talking about, but don't say who it is. I'm sure the people in chat will do that. But I'm going to put something out there, which is, I think Don is quite disenchanted with Chris. And so he might be looking for a new YouTuber to sort of talk to, and who will talk to him and who will believe in him. And I think there is someone out there. I think there is someone out there
dear.
that believes in him and that really is on his side. I don't know what you guys think.
It's
Ashley
possible.
Shelton says, can you please come out with some merchandise? There is merchandise. Let me see if I can bring it up for you.
I got the Does This Make Sense t-shirt and the True Crime Rocket Science mug. They're really comfortable.
If you Google Teespring TCRS, you might find it. But yeah, there is merch. I'll see if I can get it here. TCRS merch on Teespring. I think this is it. And then it says things like, does that make sense? And that sort of thing.
Does this make sense? Does that make sense?
So what have you got? Have you got a mug?
I have the TCRS mug and I have the Does That Make Sense Black Women's t-shirt.
Okay. Is it good
I wore
quality?
it during the Everest conversation.
Oh, really?
Remember?
Okay. Oh, yeah, I remember that. Yeah. So I'm going to put it in chat.
Share it.
But I don't know if that's the right link, but if you Google TCRS merch, Teespring, I think it should come up.
I see some unkind messages about other YouTubers.
That's very naughty.
And, while it may or may not be true, we choose to be kind and say nothing rather than insult someone else.
Someone said they want a Timmy t-shirt.
That would be awesome. I love the little edition that you have with Timmy, the bad boy.
That is actually his real growl. That's not like
I want that on a shirt.
Yeah, so I think we can definitely do an intertextuality t-shirt.
That would be really cool.
Let me just look at some of the questions. Someone said, why is Don upset with Chris? Go and look at Don's Facebook. I think he feels betrayed or let down or whatever.
It's quite telling. It's quite telling that he went on that rant with someone who's trying to help find his daughter.
So, that is another thing that makes this case quite interesting is whether you hear from Don on YouTube, there's also Facebook where he's directly communicating almost on a daily basis. And one day he's saying, I can't say anything, I may not say anything. And the next, more and more is coming out. Timmy is a schnauzer. Del Rayburn says, Chris got to know the truth. Okay. How is Timmy today? Timmy's really good.
I know they want a Timmy fix.
Yeah, Timmy's actually right below me here. He's right, but I don't really want to disturb him. But he's actually really cute. Maybe because I don't often leave him completely alone. I'm often here with him. But I had to run a couple of errands. Some of my patrons will know why. And so I kind of left him alone, and he almost has like a double or triple dose of energy when I get back where he wants to, where he's so excited to see me that he's got to explode that energy out of him. And so he was like running around in circles, and I must just sort of move a little bit, and then that's the game. He's going to run incredibly fast, back and forth and whatever. And I've actually put some laminate floor in my home quite recently, which he skids on. And when he wants to change direction, he runs in the same place for a while before he gets going. It's just so funny. It's kind of like you see in the old Disney things with Pluto, just like that. He runs, he doesn't go anywhere, and you hear that clatter of his paws on it.
I want to also thank the mods that are in the chat. Bria and Jean, I see.
Oh, is Jean there? I haven't seen Jean.
Yeah,
but obviously
they have given me the opportunity to come and discuss on today's live with you by helping in the chat with that
I see lawn chair detectives in the house.
I love that
Always
name.
always makes me smile. Candalee says Gannon was found March 2nd. I don't know if that's true. I think I could be wrong, but I think that's the day Letitia was arrested. I think wasn't Gannon found something like 2 weeks after that. That's how I remember it. I could be wrong. I don't have that information in front of me. I love the way you speak of Timmy.
Hi, Jill. I am a mod on the channel and just sharing some points, some things that stood out to me from the interview room's conversation with Don. He's trying, Nick is trying StreamYard for the first time on his YouTube channel. The other time that we had a discussion, it was Zoom. So this is a big step for this channel, even though many other channels have used it, and I've joined on panels on some of them.
Yeah, I've been quite slow, not only to get onto YouTube, but even to take this step. I was also very slow. I don't know if you remember, Stephanie, it took me quite a long time to do my first live. I mean, I actually do it the hard way. Like, this is really easy, although it's quite stressful. You know, I'm sure you know what I mean. It just, you feel a little bit stressed out and so on, but it's far easier doing this.
Because it was like,
I had your work.
And you're like, oh, you're available this afternoon? And I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I thought this would be perfect.
Now that I'm just having a conversation, I feel like next time that I come on, it'll be better, I promise.
What I like about what we did here, and I kind of like to do it more, is I don't want it to be me leading the charge and you sort of just nodding, yes, that's so true. I kind of want you guys also to kind of have either a theory or an opinion or whatever, and that's either just as strong a statement as me, or it's basically, do you know what I mean? It stands on its own. I just want to bring more voices in, because I do want to. I want this to be an inclusive channel, but also one that gets you thinking, on your feet.
It's interactive.
You know what I mean? Yeah. I mean, it's good to challenge yourself, and like this kind of thing to me was like, I don't really want to do it and whatever, but it's part of the process. You know what I mean? And I've got to say, it is actually very hard making the kind of videos I make, and I think there's another channel called Plunder that Plunder also makes. You never see our faces, but then you sort of you write down a script and you put the images in order, and it can sometimes take a whole day, even longer, just to make one video. And whereas when you do this, it's very easy in comparison,
Not as much preparation.
Yeah.
As when you're making an episode with images. And
I just want to acknowledge Elizabeth Camille. She says, my earlier super chat was not meant in disrespect. It's a real club. You are great at what you do. Thank you. Thanks, Elizabeth. I'm sure I've missed so many super chats.
I know. We apologize.
I just want to say sorry for those who I have missed. I definitely wasn't able to.
And thank you
it's
so
very
much,
difficult
Priya,
when you're on StreamYard to because you kind of, it's just a totally different format.
I do know that you can highlight super chats and comments. It's a learning process. I don't know how to do it, but I know many creators will put up the acknowledgement or a comment that stands out to them. So that's something that once you get the hang of it, you could do that too.
Yeah, there's some more people asking about TCRS merch. Just Google TCRS, MERCH,
or maybe after
Teespring.
Yeah,
maybe afterwards I can put it up there. But the weird thing for me is when I go to it, it gives me my creator profile. So I can't really give you the website because it always reverts to my dashboard. So it's a little bit. Patricia says, who all was at the swimming hole? Well, definitely Macbeth and Candace and Summer. And then the question is, was Grandma there? And something that was certainly raised by some folks on Patreon, which I think are quite interesting, is it possible that Candace went to pick up Grandma or went to do something and left Macbeth and Summer alone at the swimming hole?
Yeah.
Is that
There's a lot of
possibility?
possibilities.
Yeah. If you think about it, there are quite a lot of people in the story. You know, there's an unusual amount of possibilities in the story, definitely.
Yeah, a lot of avenues that need to be investigated.
So some people are
I
saying,
still don't
why
even.
didn't you? Yeah.
I was gonna say, the last visual that we have is of Summer in a vehicle, looking like she's sleeping, I guess. What I think you made the point, maybe she never made it home. And I think that that's a real possibility because we've never had any evidence that we've seen physically yet that places her at the house. So the last image that I've seen so far is of her in a vehicle where we've time stamped it about 10 minutes from her house.
Well, if we reverse engineer what we suspect and what we know, so when I say that, I mean what we know is that they're struggling to find Summer. What we know is that a long period of time, 48 days, not through a lack of trying, you've had, I remember somewhere reading that I think there were 90 or 100 agencies involved in the search, and thinking, is that a misprint? Don't they mean 19? It was actually around about 100 search agencies involved, right? Or agencies, law enforcement agencies. And so there's been a heck of a lot of effort that went into this. And so you ask, well, how on earth is it possible that Summer's still missing? Now, one of my first kind of strategies was center your search at the home. And that was based on kind of what we were told. That's based on, so Summer, the last time you saw Summer was when she went into the house and maybe she went out the basement door, or maybe she didn't go out the basement door. But it's basically, the last time we saw Summer was at the house, in the house, on the property. Okay, well, do your search there. Well, what if that's the one place she's not at? In other words, I mean, typically that would be the first place you would look. And I'm not saying there's nothing to look at the Wells home. I'm not saying that. But in terms of finding Summer, I think the reason we've not been able to find her is because she's not there. And as soon as you acknowledge that element, you sort of realize you're in hot water, because if she's not there, where is she? And as soon as you go into that place of, well, somewhere between the swimming hole and Ben Hill Road, well, that then becomes orders of magnitude more difficult and complicated, because where do you begin? And you kind of had that a bit with the Gannon store case, where you were like, okay, so Gannon's not at the home. Well, where is he? And in that case, at least you knew where Letitia drove. It was sort of, there was kind of a little bit of a squiggly pattern that she went, and it was suspicious, but it was still like, where is Gannon? I mean, and then they did actually find traces of him, like on a board and so on. Very
Remember
little traces, but enough of him to be like, well, Gannon was very likely here, right? But we haven't had that in this case.
I remember
Yeah.
the video that was I think it was accidentally captured with the candle. Was it with the candle?
Oh yes, yeah.
With Gannon, there was like an accidental video too. And
Yeah.
with this,
Yeah, that's a really good point. That's a really good point. And then also, she took photos of Gannon sleeping on
sleeping.
like the last day. Yeah.
That's really, really creepy.
Yeah.
Yeah, really bad.
Well, I just had a kind of an epiphany that I wanted to share, but as I concentrated on what you said, it just slipped away. I can't remember when he said it, but at one point Don said, it may have been in a Sermon on the Mount, but I just remember thinking about what he was saying and thinking, is there more to it than in other words, is he leaking some crucial information here? And it was when Don said something like, you can't search every single house. He said something like that. And I thought, if you were hiding someone away, then that would be kind of a solution. The fact that they can't search every single house. And that made me think, perhaps Summer is in some kind of structure. I don't know what, whether it's a shed or a construction site or some kind of structure. But just those words made me wonder, you can't search every single house or whatever. And you can't. But that just stood out to me.
He also mentioned to Chris, Chris McDonough shared that Don said that he just feels like she's dead and buried somewhere.
Yeah. In the Chris Watts case, I don't know if you remember, he said on television, he said something like, where would you begin to search? Something like that. And if you think about him saying that and where his family actually were, it kind of corresponds, because in a weird way, it's almost like he's projecting onto his audience. Where would you begin to search? You're never going to find them. Where would you begin to search? And so a statement like that, when you know the answer, when you know he knows the answer and you know also what the answer is, you can kind of see where his psychology might be going. And so you've got to wonder, how much of that psychology can we apply here? And obviously it's very difficult because you don't have a baseline. You don't really get a sense of knowing or even being able to some extent anticipate what kind of person Don is. He's almost like a very foreign kind of person to some of us. The way he speaks is quite different. But we're getting to know him more and more every day. But we're starting to wonder, when he says something, does it mean something? And I think it does, but some of it doesn't, obviously. And that's what also makes this that's what also makes this and I don't want to minimize what's at the center of this. Not a game. It might be a game to the people at the center of it, but there is a little girl that probably isn't alive anymore, that isn't going to end up happily ever after. And so we are challenged with that situation, with what is being said, where, as you said earlier, Stephanie, they try and tell the truth. They try to tell as much of the truth as they can, and then on the critical things they don't. And it's trying to separate the wheat, the wheat from the chaff, or how does that saying go?
Mm-hmm.
Straw from the chaff. How does that saying go? Separate the wheat from the chaff.
I don't know that saying.
It must be an English saying. I think it's wheat from the chaff.
I have to Google that one. A lot of things that you teach, someone had
Yeah, it's a
mentioned
British
you teach
saying.
us a lot of words and phrases. And before I respond, sometimes I have to Google, like, what does that mean?
Yeah,
I'm
it's
learning
quite
a lot.
weird. I know a lot of these sayings, but you sort
Seed
of,
from the shaft. That's a
but you don't actually know
or
how
wheat from
you
the
know
shaft.
them. It's just one of those. But then it means to. It's a chiefly British saying. It means to judge which people or things in a group are bad and which ones are good. But it's also how you judge what parts of a statement are throwaway and which ones aren't. But you, again, you don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. Well, there's another one.
I've heard that one.
Yeah. Okay, let's have a look at some of these comments. Maisie says, it is super to have Steph. You have nerves of steel. Oh, Caroline says,
Well, I wanted
underneath
to make, if I can do it, anyone can do it. Bria
Yeah,
was very brave on Patreon, reading her notes in her voice, so we could hear her authentic voice. That was very brave.
yeah, we actually can't wait to get Bria on here. Bria's in France, and I think where Bria is, it's just as late as where I am. It's 10 to 1 in the morning here. So,
I know you probably heard my stomach growling.
okay, so
Dinner time.
let me ask you guys, what was the number one red flag or big thing that stood out in yesterday's discussion about Don on the interview room? What was really flashing out at you in that thing? Like, I've highlighted 11, but I'm going to talk about the one that really stood out. Which one stood out to you guys?
I'm not sure, Heidi. If I said something that offended somebody, I apologize if I did.
Yeah, I don't know where there was offense, but you know, there always seems to be offense somewhere. Gary Torgerson, yeah, that's definitely Sharon LaBelle says past record. Melancholy. Gay Jose, yeah, that's also quite interesting. Marigold talks about Don admitting to what he did with his sisters. Alice says him firing the drug dealer. Michelle Caravajal says allowing the 5-year-old to sleep with the parents. Natalie Burr, they've messed up lives, but Summer could have been abducted. What then? Do you want to respond to that, Stephanie? So, I mean, people have voted on this.
For me. Let me see.
So Natalie says they've messed up
bingo
lives.
Card and Toast. That's from the Interview Room's channel.
Yeah.
He said Castle Rock Mom said he doesn't remember selling his other kids. He did say that too, or Chris shared I think it was.
He said, I don't recall.
Yeah. Or no, I don't. I don't recall. Like, how do you?
Okay. I can't see your face, Stephanie, because you're leaning on so far. We can't see you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Me? I have like another laptop. That's why. Sorry.
Okay. Amy says, why would Macbeth talk if Summer was let me use, I see what you're doing. If Summer was killed, I don't think that's the case. I don't think Summer was killed. I think Summer came to grief, in the way that Don said that was her downfall. I think what happened to her wasn't intentional, but that doesn't mean it's innocent. But I don't think she was killed. Why would Macbeth talk? Because I think he feels to some extent that what Candace is saying is not true, and vice versa. I think I don't know if Candace thinks Macbeth's not being honest, but I think she certainly feels like he might be showing her in a bad light, so she's going to address that. You might have noticed that the timing of Candace going onto the interview room was immediately after Macbeth went on the interview room. So
I did notice that.
there's a little bit of he said, she said going on, But a good question. Toot says, I believe the three boys are 12, 9, and 7. Vid Intuitions asks, was Macbeth given a polygraph? Yes, that's right. Hey?
Someone mentioned that they had their child in their bed with them for many years. I think Allie Brewer, and I had both my boys co-slept with my husband and I for the first year and a half of their lives. But
so
we haven't been charged with essaying anybody, family members.
I think it's important to, whenever you point the finger in this way, to recognize that, when you are highlighting something like that, you're not saying if you doing that, you are bad or evil or whatever. You're saying this is a situation where someone has come to grief, someone has disappeared, and that is part of the fabric behind it. And not just that, also all these other things, like, so this person, whoever you are, did you also get intoxicated often, and you slept with, not with, but in the same bed with your child, and that's totally different. That is what we're talking about. So you must be careful, if you say something, not to say, well, wait a second, I do that and I'm totally innocent. The issue is someone doing this, plus that's happening, plus there's that, plus there's a criminal history, and it's within a situation of a child disappearing, right? Where I think it's more useful isn't for you to say, I do that and I'm a good person. It's to say, okay, has that occurred in other cases where that's also happened? And one example where there are other similar intertextualities. So another example is Casey Anthony, where where Kaylee came to grief in a horrible way, and there was also frequent substance abuse. And then is there neglect, and perhaps even further than that? I don't actually want you around right now. You are kind of in my way. I love you, I like you, but for right now, I want to have fun. I need you to be quiet or to settle down or to be not, I can't be worrying about you right now, and I'm starting to get almost desperate, right? That's not really a sign of really good parenting, that situation. It's almost a sign of, well, it's a sign of an accident that's about to happen, I think, when you're in that situation.
Someone asked if you were going to make a request for the 911 call with the Freedom of Information Act.
I'm not going to do that. People often come to me and they say, can you ask for this or that or that? There's the channel Plunder tends to do that anyway. She's very quick on the mark with getting arrest records and things like the 911s, and she's very quick on the draw in that respect. And I'm certainly not I'm not going to compete with her on that. She's really good with that. Between several channels, there's a lot of talent, and some of us specialize in certain areas and others in others. And so the answer is no. That's certainly something that even Chris McDonough, with his contacts with law enforcement, I wouldn't be surprised if he's asked, he's probably been told no, I would imagine.
Yeah, I really appreciate him sharing the interviews that he,
if you remember, if you think of the Chris Watts case, how long it took us to get the Ring doorbell footage of Shanann coming home, it took us until February of the next year. You know, so some of that stuff's withheld for months and months and months, when you would kind of think, why? And I think that particular footage was withheld because of the potential defense that Shanann was intoxicated, and if Chris Watts couldn't see that video, he wouldn't know that he could use it or not use it or whatever. So, you know, it's just law enforcement playing things safe and carefully. Mary says it's wheat and tares. Tares are weeds that look like wheat. Well, that's another saying, I guess.
Some people are saying the assaults are what stand out for them. I saw Connie mentioned that Don saying he drove the red Subaru was a big red flag for her.
Okay.
So they're
Vintage 55 says, if the car video wasn't made on that day, wouldn't law enforcement know it was made another day? Probably. You can sometimes fiddle with metadata. I don't think that happened here. To be honest, to me, it fits. It fits that video happened that day, just based on, I mean, who took the video? Where were they driving?
Really, really strange.
Someone's there. Yeah, it kind of fits. But you can, you know, based on any photo or video, it does have metadata, assuming you can get the original device. Plus, if it's posted onto social media, that's also going to, I don't know if you guys remember from the Chris Watts case, the prosecutors and law enforcement seized the social media accounts. So they literally seized the account so that they can go through the data there as well. So you also have that side of it. Lisa Sweats, thanks. Always remember, people show you who they are by their actions, not by their words. Don says one thing and does the opposite. So I think an interesting question to ask here is, and I've sort of been bringing it up in the Sermon on the Mount videos, is, are they covering for one another? And if they are, why? I mean, who's actually responsible for what happened to Summer? I mean, who is the one in the wrong and the other not? Or are they both in the wrong? Why?
Every account is different.
Yeah. And if you go that route, if you say, you know what, I think it makes sense that the parents are the suspects, then one of the very difficult arguments to field, I'm not going to deny that it's extremely difficult to figure this out, is, because it is kind of a mystery, is if you take that question into the Ramsey case, you say, well, if that was happening, why on earth would the one parent support the other and the other parent support the other, right? And in some ways, that is a very difficult question. In the McCann case, you potentially have the same thing. Was that happening? And if it was, why on earth would they be defending one another? You know, why would one? And why would they stay married if one was guilty or one was more guilty than the other? And that is a very good question. It's a very difficult question to answer. Francis Dean says, where's Summer? So I think the simplest way to answer that question is, she's probably not on that property. And that then makes it, in other words, no idea, you know, where could she be? And then I think you've got to start looking at what are the ranges based on the fuel tank and based on time and based on the routes around there. What are the possible routes that you could take? And so I don't think so. So I think this is something that I don't think has been thought about very much or spoken about very much. Is probably or possibly someone may not be very far from the side of a road. So someone may have driven somewhere, similar to the Casey Anthony case, and then a few steps from the road, you'll find someone. In fact, that was how they found Gannon's stalk, was that Gannon was very far. I think he was over 1,000 miles from home when they eventually found him. But he was found right kind of under a highway bridge. And I think that's going to be possible here. But you could also have a situation where, although it's beside a road, there might be a stream or a river going under a road that could then convey, it's difficult to say. Steph says, did somebody say the Ramsey case? Yes, somebody did.
Your intertextualities.
Yvonne Phillips, good to see you here. Yvonne's also a patron. If they're covering for one another, it is because of a very dysfunctional form of codependency. That's a good answer. Your answers, the one side of it, I think the other side of it is, what does that mean in practice? What are we actually talking about? Bria says, I think, as you said, we need to look at Don's work. Good point, Bria. Stephanie, do you need to go?
No. I think you do, though. It's very late.
It is quite late. I think let's try another 10, 15 minutes and then...
Yeah, I'm not trying to be rude. It's just I'm looking at chat on a different screen.
So Blue-Eyed Scorpio says, the John Benet Ramsey case is how I found your channel with 3 exclamation marks. I must say I really appreciate that, because when I did the John Benet Ramsey case, I was quite intimidated. I thought this is going to be a real test of whether you have anything to contribute to this genre or not. And I was pretty intimidated. I thought, what on earth can you know and can you contribute 20 years after the fact? And so it was quite a relief that we did find a couple of things out that no one else had. Not saying they blew your socks off, but one of them had to do with the photos that John took on the scene, and a couple of other things that, most recently, the last photo, I remember when the last photo came out, and I was like shocked and really like, this is an epiphany, and people were like, what are you talking about? There's nothing there. It's just John Benet not looking particularly happy. And I ended up writing a book just on the last photo, and I think that on its own was quite a contribution. There are sometimes things in a case that become almost mythical. And in this case, one wonders whether it's the last photo, whether the last photo is going to be the beginning, the middle, and the end of the story, where people are going to wonder, what is that all about? And the longer it takes to find some of the longer, the harder it's going to be to say definitively what happened to it. I don't know if I'm going to spell it out, but the longer it takes to find it, the harder it's going to be to do those tests and to examine and be able to confirm this. And one wonders, what is going to change if we haven't found her after 48 days? Are we going to find her after 75 days or 100 days? What is going to change that? And I guess 2 or 3 weeks ago, I thought, well, if she's going to be found, it's going to be now, and then she wasn't found. I don't know why is it really crossing a line if at this stage you ask the community to search certain areas? Is that really, particularly with this idea of searching along traffic arteries. You can just go 10 or 20 or 30 yards within the fringe of certain roads. Is that
Just like
so?
In the Morphew case, they did that, and we don't know yet what came of that, what evidence may have actually come of that.
Yeah, I mean, something that comes up often now in true crime is your cell phones provide a huge amount of evidence, but so do vehicles. Vehicles are a really good place to look for evidence. Vehicles are very useful tools for criminals. They are often part of the machinery of a crime. From Scott Peterson, wasn't it part of the OJ Simpson case? Gannon Stalk, obviously. To be honest, I believe that it's part of the Madeleine McCann case. That a vehicle is part of what happened there. I'm trying to think of other cases. Stephen Avery is quite a good example where the victim actually drove into the scrapyard. And then, anyway, so a vehicle is something that needs to be examined meticulously, and it's often a mini crime scene all of its own. Yeah.
I think that, hopefully praying that Summer is found, the more time that goes by, like you said, the less likely we are to have the answers of what happened to her. But hopefully the circumstantial evidence will be enough to hold someone accountable.
Castle Rocker Mom says both Don and Candace have given up their children. I think you're talking about the older children, not the boys in this case. I've heard Candace had another child after Summer and gave it up. Okay. If the gloves don't fit, you must acquit.
I see a lot of people heading out.
Yeah. Okay, so I think since a lot of you have left, I want to touch on something that I think is important but controversial. Some people say, okay, so what is the true crime rocket science position on that and on that or whatever? And I want to go into an area where angels fear to tread. What is the position on getting the coronavirus vaccine? I know there's a lot of strong opinions this way and strong opinions that way. And I was trying to think of an analogy for that. And obviously what I'm going to say now is my opinion, and I'm sure maybe as many as half of you may disagree. That's fine. I'm just going to share my opinion. I do think it's important. I think it's important, this case is an important case. There's a missing little girl, but that's also important because it's also people's lives at stake, and livelihoods at stake. And in a weird way, it's the whole world coming back onto its feet. And are you participating in that? Are you helping? Are you part of the solution, right? And I know everyone's got their own, it's all relative. And I'm going to ask Stephanie to also talk about this. But I'm just going to say what I think, right? So I was thinking about it, like what is a good analogy for it? And I was thinking that having the vaccine or not having the vaccine is a little bit like driving a car with your seatbelt on or not with it on. So in the early days, if you have your seatbelt on, you're doing something that is generally considered safe. Some people could argue that it's not safe. In certain, if your car catches a light, it could actually not be good. but generally speaking, it's generally regarded as safe, and it's actually a legal requirement that you wear your safety belt. But I think you can take it further than that and say it's so the whole idea of coronavirus is like driving a car, which is a risk. Every time you drive a car, you could have an accident, something could happen to you, you could hurt somebody else, right? When you put a seatbelt on, you are at least taking care of your life, and you are being. Now compare that to someone who's driving under the influence. So you've got your seatbelt on and you driving safely, but there's somebody out there that is actually driving under the influence, and not only is that illegal, but it is likely to cause harm, not only to that person, but to other people. And I don't know if you've had that feeling where someone does drive under the influence and something happens and someone loses their life permanently, obviously, through this horrible, avoidable tragedy where they horribly drunk and then they hit somebody. Maybe it's a youngster, maybe it's a college student, maybe it's whoever, maybe it's a mother with a child. And then that person loses their life, or they are paraplegic because of that moment of weakness or recklessness. And so that you get that feeling of, well, please don't do that. Please don't drive drunk because of everybody else on the road. And I sort of feel like that's an analogy for people not taking the vaccine. What about all the people that have done, that they've tried to be good citizens? You may disagree with it, but that is what they're trying to do. They want to get back to work. They've done all of that. Now, I can understand, because I have been vaccinated and I was nervous and I was anxious and I didn't feel that great afterwards. But when you have done that, and if you wear a mask and someone else doesn't, there is the sense of, so we are stuck with the situation because of other people who are not doing it, which is a little bit like someone driving drunk. They're going to cause damage that's going to affect other people. Do you think that analogy works, or do you think it's totally off? What do you think, Stephanie?
I think it does. I think everybody needs to do their part, but I don't know. I have a very, I guess, biased opinion because I work in a family business, which is a pharmacy, and my dad and my sister administer the vaccines every day. And what we're finding now is more and more people are bringing their young teens in to get it too.
Mm.
My cat's name is
Yeah.
Scout.
I wish he'd meow, because then Timmy's actually abandoned me. He was below me, but he's abandoned me. But I must say, just looking at the comments in here, there are people who are, scornful of it, and there are others who are spot on, and, I actually find the most terrifying thing about the coronavirus, not the coronavirus. I find it's our reactions to it. I find that terrifying. I find, like this idea that you can have all the information, but yet that is the decision you come to. I find that terrifying. And I think that is what is going to turn the coronavirus, instead of into a 1-year thing or a 2-year thing, it might last half a decade now. It may even last this entire decade. And for, you may not think about this now, but there are probably some young people who will lose, like the whole veneer of their life is a shade weaker, because, in terms of the vibrancy and everything, because of this. And it could have been, like if you take China has vaccinated over 1 billion people in their population. Kind of because they're an autocracy and they ordered everyone, but coronavirus is not a problem in China. And so, you've got this situation of free will. We have the free will to decide. And so we also have the free will to decide we're not going to do it. Like you've got the free will to decide not to wear your safety belt or to get drunk. It's your free will. But unfortunately, you see what I'm getting at?
I think people should, but I also think that they have a right to make their own choice and their own decision. And there are many reasons why it's not the best thing for certain individuals to get, whether it's an underlying health condition. There's different circumstances. I don't think you should be made and forced and mandated to get the vaccine. I don't know.
What I've heard, someone just said, can we talk about summer? We have for two and a half hours.
We're just
No, I'm just saying we have spoken about summer for 2.5 hours. We're just going to end this off with something, that is applicable. I heard that we've got what's called medical aid in South Africa, where you pay a certain amount and then you get coverage, right? And so it's kind of like medical health insurance. It's fairly expensive. Not everyone can afford it. I guess it's private healthcare. And I heard a rumor that they are contemplating making it like a legal thing that you get vaccinated. In other words, people who are covered by this insurance, you have to get the vaccine. So if you're not covered by it, or you feel it's not for you, well, then you must get out of the scheme. And part of the reason for it are those people who are covered that feel like, I don't want to be paying for someone who's not, because how insurance works. Your money goes into a pot which covers other people. But now what if someone says, I don't want to be vaccinated, and then their hospital care is really expensive, then your premiums go up to cover that. And I think that's quite a interesting scenario.
The vaccines don't cost anybody anything here.
Yeah.
Whether you have insurance or not, you get it. No one pays a copay. No one pays anything.
Yeah. So I just want to say something about when I got vaccinated. I felt afraid when I went. I felt uncomfortable. I didn't really want to go. Started finding myself making excuses. But once I'd had it done, I did feel this weird sense of feeling lucky and kind of privileged, and just the beneficiary of all the invisible efforts of hundreds, maybe thousands of people working invisibly in laboratories, and then you get something for free. In other words, you're getting the best technology in the 21st century, and this is given to you for free. And I almost wonder if they made it cost something, whether it wouldn't be more in demand, because it's almost like you turn up your nose. It's almost like that thing, any club that will allow you to be a member of, you don't want to be a member of it. But as long as they don't want you, then you do want to be a member of it. So if they had to make the vaccine cost maybe $300, everyone would want it, and it would be this sought after, almost aspirational thing. But because it's free, there must be something wrong with it, Cabin Life at Eden Springs says they could give me $1 million to take it. Or they could not give me $1 million. Cabin Life, I wonder if we gave you $1,000, like literally in your hand, would you take it? Roro says, couldn't the pillow be tested? The pillow could be a very important piece of evidence. It certainly could. P-Dub says, my husband's niece has the Delta variant. She's a baby. Unhappy face, yeah. Just another thing to say in that respect. It's not it's not inaccurate to say getting the vaccine is a risk. So anyone who says there's no risk, there is a risk. But it's like the risk of driving a car with a seatbelt on. The risk of not taking it is by order of magnitude much, much higher. It's like driving under the influence. The chance that something's going to happen to you then is much, much higher. You can take the risk and nothing happens, and that's a possibility. There's also the possibility that something could happen. And I think what is quite an interesting situation is the people who have been vaccinated. I don't know how you feel, Stephanie. Have you gotten the second shot yet?
Yeah, because I work in a pharmacy, I got it very early on to protect myself.
So have you felt like you want to be more, you sort of feel you're protected and you want to be a bit more social, and have you been a little bit more social?
Well, I just went to the Lady Antebellum concert. That was quite social. I mean, it was the first time I was in an arena, and it was beautiful.
Yeah. I'm sure it's amazing after that
life.
period of.
But I do want to just say, excuse me, Nick, I just want to say our discussion about summer is over, and I understand if this isn't for some people, you can certainly, leave, and we appreciate your support. This is just us talking about other topics now.
Yeah, we are. We kind of finished with the Summer Wells chat. So those who are here for that, we finished with it. So if you're getting upset, this is the last 5 minutes of the chat. We're just talking about vaccinations, just because I think it's quite important. What would TCRS do, kind of thing? That might be another T-shirt. But I mean, I thought that was pretty amazing when I saw you at this concert. I was also like, well, I wish I was there. But I mean, I haven't had my second shot yet, only the first. But this is what I think is going to happen now. People like you, and then a little bit later on, people like me who've been vaccinated, you sort of feel, I've done my due diligence. I am a bit protected. I feel a bit more protected. I'm now going to do a little bit more risky things than I would otherwise do. I'm going to start eating at restaurants a bit more. And the people who aren't vaccinated are going to go, oh, I think it's all over. I think everything's fine. But you haven't been vaccinated. And that's going to create this weird world within a world where, we're all back to normal, except not quite. And I think that is part of the real risk that's going on. And I think that is happening, that is going to happen. And the scary part is that happening, and then the virus itself evolving under those circumstances where the unvaccinated can actually potentially infect the vaccinated because there's so much virus in them, whereas it wouldn't have been there. You know what I mean? And people are talking about, I've heard scientists saying that the next step with this virus is that it could become a lot deadlier because it's trying to adapt to the vaccinated, and that is because it's allowed to exist in the unvaccinated. And they were talking about it could have, yeah.
Sketty Nona says, which one do you each have? I have the Moderna. That was what was available to me. My husband got Johnson & Johnson. That was what was available for him at the time. And my son has the Pfizer, so.
I've got the Pfizer. Natalie Berg put like, I don't know, 30 thumbs down. Okay. So not everyone's happy with that. I do think it's something we need to talk about. I'm not saying it's good for a channel or for popularity. I do think it's important, though. Awaken your senses. Some cannot have it. I think you should mention this. Some of us want it, but cannot medically. Why would that be? What medical? If you've got a heart condition, would that be a reason why you wouldn't have it? Stephanie?
If what medical conditions would you not get it? Well, some people that are, I would think if you are getting like cancer treatments, perhaps you might not be getting that, for example. But I don't know specifics. I just know that there's so many different circumstances, and what's right for one person doesn't mean it's right for the next person.
Yeah, Emily says
and someone else mentioned autoimmune disorders, so there's different.
Mrs. .S says, my dad died from the vaccine side effect, had a stroke. Sorry to hear that.
It's true, Wendy. It's not FDA approved.
Misty Dawn says, I've enjoyed the stream, guys. Thank you. Thank you, Misty Dawn. Love your channel. Thanks for that. Guys, if you haven't subscribed, please do. How many likes do we have? Okay, well, we've got more than we normally get. Angelina says, why did you block me? I don't know if you blocked Angelina. I can see you here.
Angelina, you're not blocked because we can see your comment.
J-Rock, human guinea pigs. To some extent, that's true. But what you're going to do? And Elisa says, you are the experiment. I don't know, like, you know, I've got some of America in me. I've been wanting to go to America, but I've got America in me. So maybe I'm fine where I am.
Well, with my family each having 3 separate brands of the vaccine that work differently in your body, I joke, but it's really true that I feel like my family is a walking medical experiment. And I hope I made the right choice, but I made the best choice that I thought I could make at the time.
Bria makes a really interesting comment. She says, a lot of comments have been blocked during the coronavirus talk, not by me. So it seems like there's an automatic
It's
blocking.
being flagged. Yeah.
Yeah, that's quite interesting.
Yeah. Sorry about that, everybody.
T-Dub says, I was vaccinated in March, had my second shot in April. Okay.
Hi, Spicy Lady.
Black Swan says, me too, I'm also an experiment. Okay.
Oh, Gigi, that's okay. I didn't notice.
Launcher says, Nick, you're American in thought. Sinead says, thanks, Nick, good night. Okay, so we're at the 3-hour mark. I don't know how my voice
You stretched
handled
it
this.
to 3 hours.
Yeah. I specifically didn't narrate a chapter of an audiobook today because I knew I needed to bring it. It is a long chapter as well, 7.5 pages, so I kind of purposefully put that on the back burner. But sorry to the guys who wanted to hear that. Maybe I'll put it on here. Lizzie Dripping says she only had weed. I don't know if she only had weed. I don't know.
That's what we've been told. We don't know.
Lardy Doodle says YouTube is censoring conversation. I don't think it's different views. I think you must remember YouTube is sort of got algorithms running the show, so certain words it just takes out of the thing. That's all. I mean, I've had videos that I put up that are kind of demonetized, but by YouTube's AI, and then I will ask for a human review of it, and then it gets passed. So you know, it's not necessarily Big Brother. It's just a system that is trying to do its thing. Patricia Burns said, my relative died this morning from COVID. That's really sad, Patricia. Who was that? Okay, well, I don't know if we're going to be on here for too much longer. I just want to thank Stephanie for making it, and I'm sorry if it's not. I don't understand really why the things that I put up aren't there. There was supposed to be branding and stuff. I did upload it. I don't know why it's not there. I guess we'll figure it out along the way. Bria, we want you on here in the next episode. Maybe we'll have a. I don't want to say, but anyway,
She said not next week. She'll be in the Riviera.
Oh, okay. What time is it where you are now, Stephanie?
It's 7:30. It's not late at all.
7:30. So you've still got your evening in front of you. It's 1:30 in the morning here. So Bria, I'm going to let you go, and I'm going to let myself go. I just want to thank everyone else who's still in chat. There's still 1,600 people in chat. Thanks for being here. I hope you found this effective and interesting. I'm just going to end off reading out the thing that stood out to me. So for those who've stuck out to the end, the thing that stood out to me was the acknowledgement where Summer has been sleeping. I think that to me is huge. I think that's been revealed now. So, you know, someone brought this up. Why would John say that, and why would he say it now? And I think it's possibly because the boys, individually or collectively, probably didn't think anything to give away the ghost in that area. So if the boys were asked, where does Summer normally sleep? And they may not think that that's sort of something to keep secret, right? You know, and how long has that been going on? So I think one thing that's absolutely clear is that Summer didn't sleep anywhere near the boys. And holding hands with this line of thought is Don's creepy comment in the Sermon on the Mount about Summer's body weight and her strength. He said that I think she's stronger than the boys, her unusual strength, and referring to her as an awesome young lady. That now has a creepy kind of tone to it, doesn't it? And that was the part that stood out the most to me, were the new acknowledged sleeping arrangements. And in that respect, one can see why finding Summer and medical people looking at her, someone might feel that they could get into serious trouble, given all the other things that we know. What do you think, Stephanie?
I think that that's reasonable. I think that even if it was an accident, that would be a reason why somebody wouldn't get help or just call 911 right away, because there's other secrets that they want to keep private.
Okay. Yvonne Phillips says 100%. Vid Intuition says totally creepy vibe. Okay, so someone else just asked, you know, please put a link down. I'll put one in the description, but just Google TCRS merch, MERCH, and Teespring, TEE and spring, and it'll come up. But I will put a link in there. But thanks a lot to all of you. Thanks, guys, for being here. Bear in mind, I'm going to follow up with the Sermon on the Mount with the next couple of minutes. I've only done 2 minutes of the Sermon on the Mount. The next video will be the next couple of minutes. And so we're going to go through it. And you're going to see how the fabric of that interview expands based on our knowledge expanding. You know, our insight into that sermon is going to get deeper and, in a way, darker as we know more. And it's just quite interesting how those details manifest and kind of increase as time goes by. Valerie Mooney says, I love seeing more of your personality and self aside from true crime. This is awesome. Okay. That's one thing with YouTube, is it's always asking for more of you. It's saying more, show me more, you know, and I don't know, I kind of want to, I don't know about you, Stephanie, but I kind of want to be a little bit private, keep a little bit. How do you feel, Stephanie, about that?
About sharing more about our personal lives? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, I'm just saying YouTube is always wanting more. I mean, it's like, just give it all away. Just share everything.
I think that you give a little bit more on Patreon. You share more
that's true.
About your everyday life in the coronavirus diaries. Share about your father's game farm and things you do with friends.
Yeah, and I think anyone wants to do that in a community that cares and knows about one another. You know, it's doing that in the wild west of YouTube is a bit of a risk, that's for sure. Teresa says you have to give some when you do lives. Yeah, I guess you do. Patricia says, give it to us. Bria says, Patreon is so great, you guys. Okay. I'm just going to go through the last couple of comments. Stephanie, you take 4 or 5 comments. I'll do 5, and then
I can't. My laptop
really?
ran out of battery.
Okay, so Spicy, is it gone? Okay.
Huh?
Okay, so
Yeah,
Spicy Lady says,
right now.
I and most of my family caught the real deal last October. I'm fine. And in my opinion, I have long-term memory in my genes and will produce antibodies when exposed again, no fear. So Spicy Lady says, I've kind of been vaccinated by being ill, but bear in mind there are variants. So the variants change the game. And that's also true if you've been vaccinated, which may mean even the vaccinated may need to get vaccinated again. Bria says, I will be in the French Riviera next week. I would love to do a live while I'm there. That would actually be amazing.
Oh my gosh.
Doing a live with Bria and just seeing the French Riviera behind her. In a way, I'm in winter here. We're just coming out of winter. It'd be a nice way to go to the beach without actually going to the beach.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll do
destination.
that. And Bria's got a beautiful voice, and she's also very au fait. That's a French word, au fait with what's going on. So
she has a very soothing voice.
Absolutely. So those of you who want to do ASMR, we'll let Bria talk for like 20 minutes, and you can just. Grandma Green says, please talk about the Appalachian culture in Tennessee. Good.
I did see that comment, Grandma Green, and I will check that out on Tiffany Marie's channel.
Does the Appalachian Trail go through there? I don't think it does, eh?
I'm not sure, but I'm gonna go watch and learn.
Sharon Tuck says, you're doing great, Stephanie.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Just like Patricia channels are not for everybody. Different people for different people.
Patricia says, I've actually lost 2 family members to COVID. I've actually lost 1. And I know of others who were hospitalized. They seem to have come out of it. I know someone right now, someone's boss, who is literally fighting for his life right now. He's actually got a clot in his lung, and they're worried that if the clot moves, right now there are people that are, while we're sitting here talking, they're gasping and trying to survive, Burke says, essay would be motive enough. Yeah, I agree with you. Ruth says, do a deep dive into Don and I think you mean Candace's childhood and education. Okay, well, I have done one on Candace's past to some extent. Isn't Chris McDonough doing one on Don's on that side, or
on whose?
On Don's background, or was that his later life?
I'm not sure if he's doing one on his early.
I think we did do a little bit about what Mary said, which goes to when he was a younger dude. So there is a bit of information on that. I think you can also go to, I think it's Unmasked, where Mary Howard talks about Don.
Oh, right. Yeah, she did.
He, for example, set the barn on fire. And a lot of animals died and all that kind of thing. Francis Dean, California here. Sorry, California here. We are out of here. E. Miller says, how many children has Candace had? I think 6. I'm not sure.
Who, Candace?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, my earphones are now losing battery.
Really? Okay, well, look, it's already 15 minutes longer than I thought it would be. Is it 6 children that she's had?
I think if we're including the one after summer that she might have had, it would be 6. There's 2 older.
Okay. Didn't she have 2 children with that guy Andrew or something?
Oh, so 2, the 3 boys.
The other
Summer.
Candace and wasn't there someone else?
I'm not sure. I think she
Yeah,
had
I'm also
2
not sure.
previous
There
children.
are a couple,
I don't know if it was
saying
3.
6, some people saying 7. Some say 7. 7 if there was one after summer.
Right.
Yeah. But I
That
do
was
think
brought up in the Mary Howard interview that Unmasked shared.
So I'm going to kind of just conclude on this point. I do think how Candace was a mother to, whether it's 6 or 7, but how Candace was a mother to, across the board, to all of her children. And perhaps to some extent, her mother's attitude also to her children, I think has a bearing on this case. And a very interesting way of thinking about that is in the Scott Peterson case. Scott Peterson was actually kind of a wanted child, but he had siblings that were given up for adoption. And one wonders what that message was that he got through that. In other words, if your own mother gives away, if your own mother gives away some of your brothers and sisters, but you wanted, then that may say to you that it's okay to do that. And that may be some of the psychology in this case, maybe not. Anyway, that's the last point on the topic. I just want to say thank you to everyone who's here. Thank you to the mods that have been here for a really long live.
Thank you.
Thank you to those who've contributed. I know there was some really big super chats and also some that we completely missed. It's just a little bit difficult in this format. Thanks also to Stephanie. Let's hope that we can only improve from here. Stephanie, do you want to shout out to anyone?
The mods for allowing me to be here. You for welcoming me on the channel, always being so kind to the new members and old members, Patreon members, subscribers. Thank you so much. This is started out, as I said, as a hobby for me and something I was passionate about, and now it's just become a really nice community to be a part of.
Yeah. Okay, well, thanks for making it. I'm glad that you were able to figure out your side, because I know that's the other side of the story. I do figure out what's going on here, but you can also have a thing where you get the link, but you might not, and you know, I'm glad that it worked. So we can only improve from this point.
And if you ever want to post a link in a live stream, you can pin the link and then people can join from the chat if you so chose to.
Okay.
But right now I just got it through an email.
Are you going to have dinner now? I think you said you made dinner for your boys, eh?
Yeah, I'm going to go eat and then I'm going to have a drink and then I'm going to read some comments.
I'm sure, yeah. Okay, well, it's 10 to 2 in the morning here. I'm a little bit sad about South Africa's medal hopeful Wade van Niekerk. He's out of the Olympics. That's something I actually might talk about in the next live I do, just because it's quite an interesting story, how his story has ended. Unfortunately, not on a very happy note, but it is quite an interesting story. But thanks everyone for being here, and we'll see you guys next time.
Thank you. Ciao.
Ciao.